Chapter 785. Time flew by and 5 years had passed in a flash. During these 5 years, the Wuxia League still maintained a dazzling speed of development. The highly centralized system had not yet shown its decline. At present, 9 regions was still enjoying the benefits of this centralized system. In the savage land of Blue River region, the construction of the training ground designated as Area 51 by the Wuxia League was becoming more and more magnificent. The area, with a radius of 500 miles from the sky to the endless abyss, had been transformed into the training ground of the inferior giant divine weapon, Zaku. The most cutting-edge technology and the largest resources of the Wuxia League were gathered here. As the most powerful card in the fight against the fallen immortal, Area 51 deserved such treatment. According to the overall plan of Heavenly Sage Hall, 100 Zaku pilots with strength comparable to that of Supreme would be trained here. Moreover, with the in-depth analysis of the giant divine weapon by Wang Lu, the performance of Zaku was constantly improving, and its future was limitless. Of course, 5 years could not do too much. After Wang Lu's unremitting efforts, the number of Zaku in place had reached 30. Under the coordination of the Wuxia League, the qualified pilots gathered in Area 51 as soon as possible and synchronized with the assembled bodies. From then on, they embarked on a new immortal path, and their strength advanced by leaps and bounds. In 5 years, 30 Zaku, the progress was 50% faster than expected. The first batch of 12 Zaku had the strength of peak deity stage, and the most outstanding ones such as Qianghua and Zhu Shiyao were barely comparable to Supreme. However, Wang Lu was still not satisfied with this. Since 2 years ago, he simply stayed in Area 51 and personally supervised and guided the pilots of Zaku to carry out special training. For a time, the pilots in Area 51 were in chaos. The pilots, who were originally quite comfortable, complained incessantly in front of Wang Lu's increasingly strict standards. In this regard, the pilots were naturally full of complaints, but Wang Lu fully played the role of a tyrant, suppressing all the opposition with absolute power. However, several people who were closest to Wang Lu could see something unusual in this move. "I guess he's lovelorn." In the canteen of Area 51, Zhou Mumu said indignantly, "If not, how could this kind of inhuman special training be carried out? He's obviously taking the opportunity to vent his anger." A pretty girl with a voluptuous figure sitting at the same table looked surprised. "Eh? Did senior brother Wang Lu fall out of love? When? How did this happen?" Zhou Mumu looked at her helplessly. "Lioli, there's rice on your face." Oh. He hastily scraped it down. Beside Lu Li, a young man with a scar on his cheek and a cold expression denied, "I don't think Officer Wang Lu would do something that doesn't distinguish between public and private affairs. Also, what's the connection between breaking up and special training?" Zhou Mumu sighed. "It's useless to explain it to you. No, I can't agree with such a discriminatory statement. I believe that as comrades, understanding and tolerating each other is an important part of maintaining tacit understanding during battle." Seeing that Xiang Liang was about to give a long speech, Zhou Mumu had no choice but to ask, "Xiang Liang, do you know what love is?" Xiang Liang nodded seriously. "Of course I know. Sex is one of the necessary rituals for human reproduction." Did someone just mention reproduction? How could you leave me alone on this topic?" While speaking, a bald cultivator ran over with a large pot of meat, sat on the side of the table, and looked at Zhou Mumu with a smile. "I'm the disciple of the master of reproduction in 9 regions. If you have any questions, just ask me." Zhou Mumu looked disgusted. "Luo Xiao, I wonder why Wang Lu would transfer a person like you to Area 51. Haha, of course it's because I'm strong." 15 years ago, Luo Xiao dragged Black into the water with his own strength, thus giving Wang Lu the opportunity to obtain the inheritance of Sun Booping in Thunder Reservoir. At least at that moment, his contribution was unparalleled. Thus, his God of War blood burned, which not only solved the crisis of the God of War blood's backlash, but also pushed his cultivation base to an incredible new level. As for later, when Wang Lu combined with the giant divine weapon and quickly became the #1 person in 9 regions, Luo Xiao's God of War blood had locked on a new target, the fallen immortal. And in this state, Luo Xiao was naturally qualified to join Area 51 and become the core force of the Wuxia League. It was just that, his popularity was really not good, and he had almost no friends in Area 51. Only when he was drinking and eating meat could he occasionally talk to Lu Li. However, Luo Xiao himself certainly didn't care about this. Once upon a time, he was just a nobody in front of Qianghua and the other lead disciples of the 5 Uniques. But at this time he was already standing on the same step. Compared with this, what did it matter whether others liked him or not? Luo Xiao said to Zhou Mumu with a smile, "Actually, I support your opinion. According to my recent observation, Wang Lu does have the possibility of hunger and thirst. His loyal dog Tetragon has disappeared for more than 10 days in a row, and his other confidant, his beautiful master, also hasn't been here for a long time. I heard that she stayed in the camp of the Western continent people every day, talking and laughing with that group of blonde and blue-eyed foreigners. If it were me, I'm afraid I would also be angry and vent my anger on others. Hey, pay attention to what you say. Don't implicate us if you court death yourself. Do you really think Wang Lu can't hear you?" Luo Xiao said indifferently, "Even if he heard me, I'll still say the same thing. Can he kill me to silence me? At worst, I'll just increase the training intensity as revenge. In any case, I'm not the worst, there will always be a few who are not as good as me." At the same time, in the highest command room of Area 51, Wang Lu looked at the image reflected in the water mirror in front of him with a grin on his face. In the cafeteria, he heard the conversation of a small group of people word for word. "Hey, it seems that the training intensity is still weak. They actually have the mood to spread gossip about me here." At this time, a woman's voice sounded in Wang Lu's ear. "In fact, what they said is not wrong. Your current psychological condition is indeed not very good, especially after Tetragon left. Your depression is very obvious." Now that Wang Lu had become the #1 person in 9 regions, there were not many people who could speak bluntly around him. Even the elders of Heavenly Sage Hall would carefully think about the wording, but there was one person who always said nothing, and that person was the sword spirit Autumn Beam, who had followed him for many years. As the sword spirit of Rouge Tears, after Wang Lu merged with the giant divine weapon, Autumn Beam naturally became the manager of the weapon control system of the giant divine weapon. She was inseparable from Wang Lu himself, just like his left and right arm. In this intimate relationship, she didn't need to worry about what she said. 15 years of intimacy has created a strong bond between you, although you have been deceiving yourself and trying to deny it. Stop right there. Have you been reading romance novels recently? Is it Fairy Luo Shui? Yes, I recently had a gathering with the spirits of the immortal treasures in Dixian, and they borrowed a lot of books from me. I think it's not a bad thing to gain knowledge from works of art. But it's stupid to apply the content of the novel to real life. Autumn Beam, if you have time to read romance novels to fantasize about me, why don't you have a real love? You're not young anymore, do you need me to help you pull some strings? No need. Autumn Beam's voice sounded a little annoyed. I'm not going to talk to you anymore, I'm going to debug the positron cannon. Wang Lu shrugged and a smile appeared on his face, but he quickly restrained it. His mood was indeed not very good. The strict special training of Zhou Mumu and the others was somewhat intended to relieve the pressure. However, the reason for his bad mood was, of course, not because of the breakup but because of the loss of contact. He lost contact with an important person, and so far that person had been missing for 10 days, and there was no clue to find him. The supervisor of Xingjing sect is actually gone like a dog. I'm afraid that even if Kong Zhang himself took the initiative to defect, he couldn't escape so cleanly. After Kong Zhang lost contact, Wang Lu calculated more than 10 times with his divine calculation, but all of them failed. Obviously, someone was deliberately deceiving the Heaven's secret. In today's 9 regions, there were only a few people who could hide from Wang Lu's divine calculation. Tetragon was one, Swanxian Lubiechan was barely one, and the sect leader of Spirit Sword sect Fengyin might also be one. As for the others, even Supreme Tianluan was no match for the divine calculation of the giant divine weapon. Thus, Kong Zhang, whose cultivation base was merely in the King Pill stage, naturally could not be compared with Tetragon and the others. It seems that after 5 years of investigation, he has finally gained something. 5 years ago, Wang Lu authorized Kong Zhang to investigate the elopement of Bai Zhe and Xian Mo. As a result, after 5 years there was no result. 5 years later, when Wang Lu almost forgot about it, Kong Zhang suddenly disappeared. How could it not arouse doubts? It's not a big deal that Bai Zhe and Xian Mo have been missing for 5 years. If those 2 adulterous couples are determined to elope, it's not easy for ordinary people to find them. But the disappearance of Kong Zhang can only mean one thing. The guy who has been hiding for 15 years has finally revealed himself. At the same time, still in the savage land of Blue River region, at the edge of the endless vast land, a young girl slowly put down her raised arm. Phew, it's so dangerous. I was almost locked by this sudden divine calculation. This guy has become stronger and stronger in the past 15 years. Behind the girl there was a man and a woman. At this time they were both silent, not saying a word. The girl said, I'm afraid the plan has to be changed slightly. Before we take out that idiot Moonbreeze's inheritance, we have to consider the possibility of a head-on battle with Wang Lu. The man behind her said hoarsely, "Are you sure that he will definitely find us?" "You idiot. Don't call him by Zay in the future, call him idiot." The girl rolled her eyes at him. "Didn't you see what that little bug called Kong Zhang did just now? He's dead." "Yes, he's dead. So unless Wang Lu is as stupid as you, he will definitely notice something unusual. I wanted to subdue him, but I didn't expect him to move too quickly." Without hesitation he destroyed his body and soul just to send a warning to Wang Lu. "Diske, if I knew this would happen, I wouldn't have done it while reading. My movements are too slow." As the girl complained about her mistake, she said sternly, "Prepare for battle, Wang Lu may come at any time. There are occasional mistakes in correcting typos. Add some words to make up for it." Chapter 786. In the savage land of Blue River region, by the lakeside thousands of miles away from Area 51, Wang Lu and Supreme Kuchin of Royal Soldier Sect stood side by side. Kuchin's half-foot stepped on the lake surface, stirring up a circle of ripples. After a while, Supreme Kuchin nodded and said, "That's right, it's the smell of the fallen immortal." Upon hearing this, Wang Lu frowned and smashed his fist hard. She really caught the blind spot. "I didn't expect that guy to be so bold as to wander around my base camp," Supreme Kuchin said. "Although it's a blind spot, this kind of unconventional move after all means a huge risk. There must be a plot to take such a risk. What's the point of her doing this?" Wang Lu also couldn't understand. What's worth her risk in the savage land? There's neither a made tea house nor a street around it. What is she doing here? Supreme Kuchin shook his head and said, "You have to ask yourself. The savage land has always been the back garden of Lingjian School. If you don't know, no one else will." After a pause, Kuchin said, "If there's nothing else, I'll take my leave first." Wang Lu cupped his hands and said, "Thank you for your help, Supreme." "No need." After sending away Kuchin, Wang Lu quickly fell into deep thought. What's worth taking the risk in the savage land? Is it to attack the root of the problem by surprise? She shouldn't be that stupid. I've been here for many years, so I'm afraid she won't easily come to court death. Then, could it be that she wants Mr. Feng Yu's inheritance? Yes, this possibility is very high. As the advance force of the fallen immortal, Mr. Feng Yu has the highest expectations from the upper realm, and they are also the most well-prepared. If it weren't for the fact that they suffered a big loss in the hands of Fenrir, I'm afraid they could really let him succeed. And before that guy died together with me, he did leave something behind. But if it's for that thing, then, Senior Xia Xiaohe, I'm afraid you're doomed to get nothing in the savage land." As he spoke, Wang Lu gradually smiled. "Very well, I finally got the initiative back. Next, I'll wait for you at Feng Yu's inheritance. Don't let me wait too long." In the depths of the secluded swamp of the savage land, a young girl wearing a black luxurious dress, a cat ear headdress, and a fluffy cat tail hanging down from her waist floated in the air. Covering her mouth and nose with her gorgeous sleeves, she lightly knitted her willowy eyebrows and said in a muffled voice, "Have you two found it yet? In any case, he's a great ascension stage cultivator. He's half a step into the immortal realm. He wouldn't even need someone to teach him how to find things, right?" A moment later, bubbles emerged from the stinking swamp, and Bai Zhe and Xian Mo emerged from the swamp with their respective light shields. "Nothing. Impossible," Xia Xiaohe said firmly. "That idiot Feng and you perished here, and the residue of their bodies turned into this quiet swamp. The unique stench almost made me throw up. His legacy must be here." Bai Zhe and Xian Mo looked at each other, and Bai Zhe asked in a hoarse voice, "If that person called Feng Yu was killed after he descended, then whatever legacy he had could have been taken away, right? Looking for it here is tantamount to carving a boat to find a sword. I don't need you to teach me how to look for things. When I achieved the achievement of hiding all the treasure chests in the Void Realm maze, you were still drinking milk in your lover's arms." Xia Xiaohe rolled her eyes at him angrily. The immortal treasures of the immortal realms change unpredictably, and their profundities are far from what you ants can understand. If it wasn't for me enlightening your eyes, then even if that thing was placed before you, all of you would turn a blind eye to it. Xian Mo could not help but frown. Turn a blind eye? Xia Xiaohe's attitude towards Xian Mo was much gentler. Human perception has a limit. For example, mortals without cultivation can't hear sounds that are too high or too low, and can't see specific lights. It's not until after cultivation that one's perception expands, that one will realize that the world has many more colors. Xian Mo nodded, "Exactly. Then, the treasures in the immortal realm exist in a way that is beyond our understanding, so we can't observe or touch them." Without the authorization of the immortals, you indeed don't even have the right to observe. Don't mention Kanglin, that idiot may be strong, but he never uses his brain. Coupled with the wear and tear from forcefully descending, no one would be at ease to hand over the treasures to him, so he ran naked when he descended. Otherwise, do you think that trash like you can suppress him? Shanimo asked, but we did search the bottom of the swamp thoroughly just now, and we didn't find what you said. You two are really useless. Do I have to do everything myself? I want to go back on my word, I won't bring you guys along anymore. Xia Xiaohe was a little annoyed and then hesitated. She descended from midair, her shiny black leather boots stepping on the soft swamp, and then she immediately rose more than 10 feet into the air. No, I won't step on this thing even if I die. The thing is definitely not here. Back in midair, Xia Xiaohe put up a stance, put the middle finger and thumb of her right hand together, took a deep breath, and then coughed violently. Aw, so annoying. Fengyu, that bitch is so stinky. I can't even do the immortal calculation. After losing her temper in midair for a while, Xia Xiaohe said softly with red eyes and nose, however, I have at least calculated a clue. That thing is in Blue River region. Let me see the specific location. Diske, what a shabby place. Blue River region was located in the corner of 9 regions. In the past tens of thousands of years, it had always played a remote and backward role. Whether it was the immortal cultivation world or the mortal world, it was inferior to the prosperous places such as the central region. The capital city of the mortal world of Blue River region might only be the level of an ordinary prefecture city in the central region. Later, with the rise of the Lingjian school, especially after Wang Lu drove the giant divine weapon to become the undisputed #1 person in 9 regions, Blue River region began to flourish. Although it was difficult to reverse the tens of thousands of years of backwardness, there had been many miraculous scenes in the land of Blue River region. For example, this majestic city built between the mountains was one of the most famous wonders of the Blue River region. Dear tourists, please pay attention to the left side. The huge tower shining with soft brilliance in the sun is the important attraction that we need to visit today. Wisdom King City. As the name implies, the wisdom of Wisdom King City refers to the wisdom sect, the wisdom sect that enlightens the people. Wang is not only the surname of the immortal Wang Lu, but also the original name of this small mountain village, Wang Family Village. This is not only the hometown of the #1 person in 9 regions, but also the birthplace of the famous Wisdom sect. Once upon a time, Wisdom King City was a remote and backward small mountain village located in the Dog-Ear Mountain. But with the rise of Sir Wang Lu and the Wisdom sect that he created, the small mountain village has undergone earth-shaking changes in just a few decades. With the in-depth explanation of the beautiful tour guide, the shuttle, which could accommodate 50 passengers, gradually lowered its altitude and began to hover around the tower. Maybe a lot of people will wonder what Dog-Ear Mountain is. Isn't this Dragonhorn Mountain? In fact, if there is no towering Wisdom King City, wouldn't the mountain here look like a dog's ear? But now that there is this tower, the situation is very different. Of course, the Dragonhorn Mountain is a bit of a flattery, but we can also see that with the Wisdom King City, the mountain here really looks different. Then speaking of this Wisdom King City, we often say that it is a great miracle in 9 regions. This tower-shaped city can accommodate millions of people. The bricks and stones of the city's outer wall are made of heaven-mending divine clay, which has a defensive power comparable to that of spiritual treasure. At the bottom of the tower there is a unique power source. It is said that when it is activated, it can lift the whole city into the air. But in terms of these alone, Wisdom King City can only be regarded as a relatively good city in 9 regions. Whether it is Xingjing Immortal City, or the later newly built Fengdu City and City of Immortals, they all have more powerful magical abilities and functions than Wisdom King City. However, Wisdom King City has one thing, that is, every piece of material used to build this city is locally sourced. The tourists on the shuttle were puzzled. That's impossible, right? Except for Kunlun Immortal Mountain, there is no other place that can produce heaven-mending divine clay. As a node of the city wall, the broken magic crystal is a specialty of the central region. This is simply a hodgepodge. How could it be locally sourced? The tour guide seemed to have been looking forward to this question for a long time. She immediately nodded and said with a smile, "That's a good question. In fact, this involves the core secret of Wisdom King City. There is an omnipotent altar in the city, which can produce all kinds of heavenly materials and earthly treasures every once in a while. When it was first established a few decades ago, it needed to absorb a lot of spiritual energy, and the materials produced were also mixed. But over time, the production efficiency of the altar has increased. It is said that since 15 years ago, it has been able to produce heavenly materials and earthly treasures out of thin air without the input of spiritual energy, and the quality is very high. That's just a rumor. More tourists expressed their doubts. How could there be such a treasure out of thin air in the world? The tour guide said with a smile, "Have you forgotten that Taoist Master King Pill can produce magical power from scratch? That's just magical power. How could it produce heaven-mending divine clay out of thin air? That's why Wisdom King City is called a miracle." The beautiful tour guide smiled and said, "I know that you must still have a lot of doubts, but next we will have the opportunity to go deep into Wisdom King City and observe the magical altar up close. At that time, if you have any doubts, I believe that you can get a certain degree of answers." Wisdom King City can even make this kind of core secret public? Yes, because even the managers of Wisdom King City have not figured out the principle of operation of this altar. It is said that the immortal Wang Lu has not been able to fully solve the secret, and Wisdom King City has also offered a high reward for this. If you can understand something, you can try to get that reward. The tourists naturally laughed and scolded. Even Wang Lu couldn't solve the secret. How could they, a group of tourists, solve it? In the back seat of the flying shuttle, a girl wearing a cat ornament on her head was also laughing, but it was a sneer. A bunch of idiots. Using a little bit of the effect of the leftovers as a miracle, it's ridiculous. Chapter 787. Are you sure you want to stay here for the night? Our tour group has already arranged accommodation for you. The beautiful tour guide was extremely embarrassed to explain to the 3 tourists who made special requests in front of her. As one of the top tourist attractions in 9 regions, Wisdom King City was worth an inch of gold. Because the city was not established to attract tourists, the service resources were quite limited. The rarer something was, the more expensive it was. The price of the inn here could be imagined. Although this Chamber of Commerce claimed to be a high-end tourist group, it really couldn't choose a good inn due to cost considerations. Of course, the big bunk with 16 people was indeed a bit shabby, which made the tourists complain a lot. However, as long as they saw the charges of the high-end inns in Wisdom King City, no matter how much dissatisfaction they had, they would swallow it back. The inns in Wisdom King City are very expensive. Except for the high-level members of the Wuxia League who can travel at public expense, few people will choose high-end inns. Although the chain inn we chose is in the low end, the service is guaranteed. The tour guide tried her best, but unfortunately she still failed to convince the other party. "No need, we don't care about money." The tour guide gritted her teeth at that time. "If you really don't care about money, why did you act like a miser when I took you shopping just now?" In the suite of the Ru family inn, which was second to none in Wisdom King City, Xia Xiaohe, who had a cat ear headdress on her head, stood by the window with an interested expression, overlooking the brightly lit street below. The world of ants is really interesting. It would be a pity if all this was destroyed. Xian Mo said, "Since it's a pity, you should find a way to persuade your companions to give up the perch. If it's that easy to persuade others, why don't I go around so hard? In the past 5 years I've read novels and played games less than half of what I used to. It's really a hellish torture." Xia Xiaohe said, took out a pocket-sized book from her sleeve and read it with relish. Her expression quickly eased up, as if a seriously injured patient had encountered a panacea. After a while, Xia Xiaohe said, "And even if I really manage to convince them, your ending won't change. For example, when you see a beautiful butterfly, will you choose to let it fly in a place where you can't see it, or will you catch it and make it into a specimen that you can watch at any time?" Xian Mo was speechless. "But to us this is really too cruel." "Cruel?" Xia Xiaohe closed the book and looked at Xian Mo amusedly. "You are also a cultivator of the Mahayana stage. You should have comprehended the great Tao of heaven and earth for some years. How can you not even understand this kind of basic thing? The heavens and earth were heartless and treated all living things as dogs. Humans lived in the heavens and earth and were no exceptions? Although individual human beings had rich emotions, on the whole, humans were as merciless as heaven and earth. When we eat meat, have we ever thought about how cruel it is to animals? Especially when hunting could not satisfy the demand for meat, humans simply raised livestock. The only purpose of a living animal was to provide meat for humans. Its feelings, its intelligence, and its freedom were all meaningless. And when animals eat plants to survive, who do those plants that have been gnawed to seek justice from?" Xian Mo's face became paler and paler, because these principles were indeed very simple. She had been clear about it since she was very young, but, seeing that Xian Mo had nothing to say, Xia Xiaohe flipped open the novel again. As she read, she said, "This is how the world is. What humanity, what cruelty are all jokes. In the final analysis, it's about having enough strength. Human beings can become the masters of 9 regions because they are strong enough, suppressing all the monsters in the world. And we immortals are stronger than you, so you'd better bow your head obediently. Think about how many species have been extinct in order to stabilize their position from the age of desolation to the present? Don't those creatures have their own tragic songs? But those who deserve to die still have to die. On the contrary, the pigs and sheep that obediently wait to be slaughtered live longer. This is the so-called "a wise man submits to circumstances." Bai Zhe said in a hoarse voice, "Immortals are also human beings. You and us are the same species. Are you kidding me? Isn't the most common saying in the immortal cultivation world that immortals and mortals are different? It's natural for you to separate cultivators from mortals. Then it's natural for us immortals to be separated from you. Moreover, although the origin of immortals is mortals, what is the origin of mortals? Have you ever respected your origin?" With that, Xia Xiaohe quickly finished reading the novel in her hand. Okay, it's almost time. Get ready to start. Late at night, Wisdom King City was still brightly lit, as bright as day, but the streets were almost empty. There was a curfew in the city. Except for a few privileged classes, other people were not allowed to go out after a certain hour. There was a violation. The local golden armored warriors would definitely let people see the nature of Wisdom King City. This was not a tourist city, but the birthplace of Wisdom's sect, a behemoth holy land with tens of billions of believers. Any disobedience could be regarded as a provocation to Wisdom's sect. There was no law in this city, only religious law, and blasphemers had only one end: death. If it weren't for such a strict curfew for immortal cultivators, 3 to 5 days of sleepless nights were nothing to them. Why would they care about the price of the local inns? Wouldn't it be nice to wander the streets all night? However, the strict religious law of Wisdom King City obviously could not bind everyone. There would always be people who tried to challenge the local rules. Most of them died without a burial place, but there were also a few elites whose strength was beyond the scope of Wisdom King City's management and could come and go as they pleased. Xia Xiaohe and the others obviously belonged to this group. 1 true immortal and 2 Dixian immortals. Such strength was enough to enter and leave the base camp of Shengjing sect, let alone Wisdom King City. Down there. Xia Xiaohe pointed to her feet, and then her figure flashed into the smooth white stone road. Shen Mo and Bai Zhe followed closely behind. At this time, a group of golden armored warriors passed by them, but they turned a blind eye to this blatant violation. Down there. Down there. Xia Xiaohe led the team and dived more than 20 floors in a row in Wisdom King City, but there was still no sign of stopping. At this time, it was no longer an open area of Wisdom King City, but an obvious forbidden area. The forbidden area naturally hid the secret of Wisdom King City, but Xia Xiaohe turned a blind eye to it and continued to dive. Haven't we arrived yet? I remember that the sign of the core area of Wisdom King City has been there for a long time. This place is already a lot deeper underground. After diving for more than 10 miles, Shen Mo couldn't help but ask. At first, there were signs of Wisdom's sect on both sides, but now it was dark, completely covered with rocks and soil. A lot? Xia Xiaohe's eyes were still locked on her feet and she chuckled. This city has just revealed the tip of the iceberg. Do you think the part on the ground is the main body? You're too naive. This is the heritage of the immortal world. Even if the ants study it for 100 or 1,000 years, they won't be able to understand its mystery. Look carefully, I'll let you open your eyes. As soon as her voice fell, the scenery in front of the 3 of them suddenly changed. It was a dark cave that was deeper than the sky and the starry sky. Xia Xiaohe clearly showed a hint of excitement on her face. On the other hand, Shen Mo and Bai Zhe were in a state of sluggishness. As Earth immortals, they had more or less seen a trace of mystery. This cave did not belong to 9 regions. It was not connected to any place in 9 regions, nor was it connected to any known space. This was an innate treasure that probably existed in the creation of the world. Only innate treasures would have an aura that did not belong to 9 regions at all, and the value of innate treasures could not be measured by any standard. The gate of all realms, even in the immortal world, is one of the most valuable treasures. Although it's only a fragment, it can still play its basic role. When Xia Xiaohe saw the cave, she was in a good mood. She was even interested in explaining the origin of this treasure to Bai Zhe and Shen Mo. The history of this treasure is longer than that of 9 regions, the immortal world, the demon world, and any known world. It connects the endless unknown space and can generate endless possibilities. Now, although it is damaged and has lost most of its functions, becoming a money tree for ants, it can at least do one thing. Before her voice fell, an enthusiastic voice came in. Use it to forcibly open the passage between the two worlds and welcome the arrival of the fallen immortals? Hearing this voice, the faces of Bai Zhe and Xian Imo changed dramatically. Their whole body trembled, and their immortal hearts were on the verge of collapse. In the past 5 years, this voice lingered in their hearts like a nightmare. Wang Lu, at this time, Xia Xiaohe's smile became even more brilliant. Wang Lu, you're really waiting here. In front of the black hole, the figure of Wang Lu appeared. He also had a smile on his face which contrasted well with Xia Xiaohe. You guys run around all over the world, it's too difficult to see you guys, so I had to wait here. Fortunately, I didn't let you down. Xia Xiaohe said with a smile. I knew it. Other people might not be able to figure out the function of the Gate of All Realms, but you must know some inside information. It is said that the fragment of the Gate of All Realms came to 9 regions with a comet more than 60 years ago, and on that day you happened to be born here. Considering your various feats in the past few decades, it's hard to imagine that you're a talent born locally in 9 regions. So, where did you come from? I'm really curious. Upon hearing this, Bai Zhe and Xian Imo were so shocked that they opened their mouths wide and their immortal hearts shook. Wang Lu was actually not a native of 9 regions, but a mysterious character from an unknown world? This signified far too much. At the same time as the person involved, Wang Lu just shrugged. I come from the stars. How about it, do you fall in love with me? Chapter 788. Well, Wang Lu, you're calmer than I thought. I thought you would be a little panicked after your identity was revealed. Is your immortal heart really unparalleled in the world, or do you think you're already the #1 person in 9 regions so you can suppress any opposition and sit back and relax? Xia Xiaohe said with a very concerned and sincere expression. If you really think so, then I must remind you that you're too naive. Those who are not of the same race must have a different heart. This is the fundamental principle engraved in the depths of the human soul. Since human beings became the overlord of 9 regions for tens of thousands of years, the monsters and spirit beasts of 9 regions have tried to integrate into human society countless times, but to this day they are still a second-class race. As for you, an outsider who doesn't belong to 9 regions at all, the rejection you receive will be 100 times stronger than that of spirit beasts and monsters. Wang Lu folded his arms with interest and listened attentively. You see, you've only been cultivating for more than 50 years, but you've already become the #1 person in 9 regions. Although it sounds glorious, after all, your foundation is shallow. You can have what you have today because of Hichu's indulgence. Right now, although your strength is better than Hichu's when it comes to prestige and influence, you are not as good as Hichu's. Wang Lu nodded and said, Supreme Hichu is very principled and doesn't fight for power, which is very admirable. Hichu indulges you because he trusts you. But if he learns that you're not from 9 regions, what would he think? Wang Lu said, the advantages and disadvantages of Supreme Hichu are that he is stubborn. The reason for trusting a person can be very simple, and similarly, the reason for not trusting a person can be very simple. So, you seem to be at the peak of your power now, but in fact, you're in a precarious situation. Once Hichu makes it clear that he doesn't trust you, the opposition that has been lurking for a long time will erupt. Wang Lu said with a smile, yes, I can even imagine what they will say. Wang Lu's ability is indeed very strong, but the stronger his ability is, the more dangerous it is for us. It's already very difficult for us to face the fallen immortals. If people like him occupy a high position and secretly cause trouble, the consequences will be unimaginable. That's right. Xia Xiaohe opened her eyes in surprise and said, so, you've already thought about this problem? So how are you going to solve it? This problem is unsolvable. Wang Lu said, how can there be no solution? The solution is very simple. Just kill all those who oppose me. Xia Xiaohe was slightly stunned by this answer. It is indeed a good idea, but have you considered how many people you want to kill? Not too many. Kill all the leaders and the rest will naturally scatter like birds and beasts. If those who opposed him rose from the ashes, then he would continue to kill them. If killing 10 or 100 wasn't enough, then he would kill 1,000 or 10,000 until everyone was convinced. Humans were not that stubborn and they would quickly give in. I remember that you said not long ago that in this world, the strongest fist is the hard truth, and this truth is deeply engraved in the soul, just like how those who are not of the same race must have a different heart. In the tens of thousands of years of human domination of the 9 regions, countless species perished because of human, but there were also countless species domesticated because of human. Humans, on the other hand, are especially easy to tame. These words were said by Wang Lu lightly. Xia Xiaohe held her breath and listened attentively so no one could see her real thoughts. However, Bai Zhe and Shen Mo were shocked to hear this, because they could tell that Wang Lu was not just trying to scare them. If someone really questioned or opposed him because of his identity, he would really kill them. This guy had become even more terrifying than 5 years ago, Xia Xiaohe asked, but in this way your already weak force will be even weaker. Yes, so it's best that this secret is never revealed, don't you think so? Haha, do you want me to keep this secret for you? Xia Xiaohe smiled and clapped her hands, looking innocent and lovable. Speaking of keeping a secret, I happen to know a way. Only dead people can keep a secret. Do you want to kill me? As soon as her voice fell, Xia Xiaohe's figure disappeared, leaving only a series of laughter. Aha, I know you are very powerful, so I won't fight you. I still have a lot of things to do, so I can't accompany you. The means of the fallen immortals were unpredictable. When Xia Xiaohe said that she wanted to leave, everyone present was helpless. Bai Zhe and Shen Mo, who were left in place, were stunned. Unexpectedly, Xia Xiaohe left so decisively and irresponsibly. What should they do when she left? They tried to find Xia Xiaohe, but there was no clue. It was as if she had really disappeared from 9 regions. Wang Lu also didn't make a move to track Xia Xiaohe, because he knew very well that he couldn't do it. If it was a head-on fight, he had an 80% chance to defeat the opponent. But if Xia Xiaohe wanted to escape, he had less than 10% chance to make her stay. The giant divine weapon made by Sun Buping was, after all, a war machine. Its main function was used for head-on combat. As for those various functions, they were much inferior. However, the lack of function could be made up for in a variety of ways, such as, there are a lot of things to do, such as catching up with the serialization. One Piece's leisurely life, The Legend of the Dragon Warring the Earth, Alibaba Chronicles, 7 Dynasties of Pure Feathers, Young Married Woman. Before he could finish his words, Xia Xiaohe's surprised voice sounded. How do you know my list of books to catch up with? How could I not know? You're the leader of Pingle's sect. Wouldn't you know this kind of thing just by asking the secretary who subscribes to your serialization all year round? Well, that's right. I've been missing for 5 years. As long as you're not stupid enough, how could you find out my identity? And then? Do you want to threaten me with these serialized novels? Humph, do you really think I'm an idiot? Wang Lu said, of course, I know that the attraction of these novels to you is not enough to make you lose your mind. But I have the 26th volume of the long-lost Beautiful Rivers and Mountains here. Bah, do you think I'm stupid? The 26th volume and the later parts are fake works. The original author has long died of illness. That book is already a masterpiece. Masterpiece? That's not necessarily true. Because I've already found the original author. I found him. Do you want to say that he's psychic after death? Save it. If I could summon his soul back, do you think I'd let it go? You wouldn't even have the chance to summon his soul. Of course, it's impossible to summon his soul back. He died in an accident and his soul was scattered. He can't enter the cycle of reincarnation. Even the gods can't save him. But why can't we change our way of thinking? Even if we can't resurrect, we can at least resurrect, right? Resurrect? Xia Xiaohe repeated curiously. Then she came to a realization and was shocked. The so-called resurrection that Wang Lu mentioned was not referring to life, but reproduction. Production. That's right. As long as a person's birth and growth environment are completely replicated, it's very possible to create a clone that is highly similar to the original. Of course, there will inevitably be errors during this period, but as long as there are enough samples, we can always select individuals that are exactly the same as the original. Wang Lu smiled. In Xia Xiaohe's silence, he continued, in the past 5 years, I used the resources of the Wuxia League to try to create a total of 20,000 clones. According to my mathematical calculations, this number is enough to ensure that a miracle will happen. After I screened tens of thousands of clones, I finally got what I wanted. I asked that person to continue writing the rest of the novel, including the ending. I also specially invited more than 30 old readers who have been obsessed with novels for many years to read it internally. The unanimous conclusion is that the style of writing and the plot of the novel continue very perfectly. In other words, this is the real Jiangshan duo by after the 26th volume. Gulp. In the dark underground world, there was a clear sound of swallowing. You don't think that you can use this kind of thing to tempt me? Wang Lu smiled again. Tempt you? Who do you think you are to be tempted by me? What I'm going to do is threaten you. Xia Xiaohe, I'll count to 3. If you don't appear by then, I'll skip all the parts in the middle and directly reveal the ending. What? I've already processed the memories of the 30 internal trial readers, and they can no longer remember the plot. The 20,000 clones have also been processed, and it's impossible for them to write the original text. So, do you want to come and fight me or suffer a tragic spoiler and suffer in the pain of incomplete plot for the rest of your life? Well, without further ado, I'm going to start counting 1, 2. As soon as Wang Lu said 2, everything went black in front of him. The soil and rocks in the underground world all disappeared, and a ferocious giant beast opened its pitch-black mouth and pounced towards Wang Lu. Giant beast of heaven and earth? The giant beast that existed in the legends of the prehistoric era, the one that could swallow the heaven and earth, actually appeared in front of him. Although it was just a cub, its mouth already had the momentum of a whale that could swallow everything in the world. However, Wang Lu didn't care much. At this moment, even if he returned to the prehistoric era, he would still be the most powerful existence on the continent. What could a mere cub of a giant beast do to him? Guess break. Wang Lu's right arm moved forward, and a surging sword energy burst out from his fingertips. The sword energy was extremely thin like a strand of hair, but it was also extremely sharp. With a soft sound, the Qian Kuan in the giant beast's mouth was pierced, and then it let out a cry. Back then, I even broke the heavenly tribulation. How dare you, an idiot, act rashly in front of me? As he spoke, Wang Lu returned to the original form of the giant divine soldier. A giant that was thousands of meters tall appeared in the underground world, pushing the soil to the side. The mighty momentum that could break the heaven and earth made the giant beast of heaven and earth look small. What are you two waiting for? Hurry up and help me take down this outsider with ulterior motives. Xia Xiaohe issued an edict to Bai Zhe and Xian Mo. The next moment, the two Dixian began to move involuntarily. Yin and Yang divide. Veto golden seal? Wang Lu laughed and said, "Good, today I'll take care of you two traitors at the same time." Comrades, as an aside, the PV competition of Spirit Sword Mountain has entered the final stage, and whether the novel can be animated has also reached a critical period. Please take the time to go to the homepage of Tencent Animation, click the link, and cast a valuable recommendation vote for this book. A QQ account can cast 3 votes a day. As long as there are 1,000 people, there can be 3,000 more votes a day. If there are 10,000 people, there can be 30,000 more votes. If you want to see Wang Lu who can move and talk, please go and vote. Thank you. Chapter 789. In the Wisdom King city of the Blue River region, the battle deep underground had been going on for a long time. Wang Lu was fighting 1 against 3, but he was doing it with ease, suppressing the 3 opponents to the point of being in danger. From the point of view of an onlooker, this was almost a game of cat and mouse. A true immortal and 2 Dixian were powerful existences that could reverse heaven and earth with a raise of their hands and feet. When they fought with all their might, let alone 100 miles underground, even if it was 1,000 miles underground, it could cause a natural disaster on the surface. However, the battle lasted for more than half a day, and the battlefield was always limited to a radius of 10 miles with the gate of all realms as the core. With the giant divine weapon's thousands of feet tall body, this battlefield was simply a cramped cage. In other words, the giant divine weapon did not even need to make any intense movements to control the other 3 people in the palm of its hand. The means of the immortals were almost useless on this battlefield. Whether it was the Yin and Yang division that could reverse the universe, the negation immortal technique that could reverse the flow of time, or Xia Xiaohe's true immortal technique that was far above the 2 Dixians, all of them were ineffective within a radius of 10 miles. The 3 great cultivators with hundreds of means could only use the most basic offensive and defensive means, their own fists and feet to fight. However, how could such simple and crude means be compared with the giant divine weapon that was thousands of feet tall? The immortals were powerful because of their immortal technique. Although their physical bodies had also been strengthened, under the intentional guidance of Wang Lu, the giant divine weapon had been specially strengthened. The gap between a professional and a non-professional was undoubtedly evident on this battlefield. As a true immortal, Xia Xiaohe's strength should be on par with or even stronger than Wang Lu's giant divine weapon, but at this time she was like a bird that had its wings cut off, helpless. Of course, on the other hand, it was difficult for Wang Lu to kill these 3 people in one fell swoop. The synchronization rate of the giant divine weapon was only a little more than 60%, and he still lacked the means to kill them in one blow. He could only use the advantage of the battlefield to wear them down bit by bit. During this entire process, Wang Lu's mouth was naturally not idle, and he ridiculed and humiliated his opponent to his heart's content. Haha, Bai Zhe, we haven't seen each other for a few years and I was looking forward to seeing how much progress you would make with the new master. In the end, you're still the same old. The new master didn't even give you a few bones and you're ordered around as you please. I really feel bad for you. Xianemo, although everyone says that women are emotional creatures and often make some irrational choices, but to give yourself to Bai, I really can't see through you. I thought that those dog slaves who are willing to mate with dogs were the best of the best. I didn't expect there to be a case among the people I know. But it's okay, I'll help you get out of this. As for you, Xia Xiaohe, do you really not want to know the ending of Jiangshan Duo Jiao? Maybe this is your last chance. If you go to the grave with regret, you won't be able to die in peace. Oh, Bai, this move of yours is not bad. Is it a new tortoise fist? You are indeed an earth immortal from the golden age. There is no such thing as body refining on the path of cultivation. You are not even as good as a dog in close combat. Hey Xianemo, you really have some power. No wonder you're the original owner of Rouge Tears. I don't know how much better you are than Bai. To be honest, you should know when to stop giving up on yourself. Whether it's sun booping or tetragon, it's all in the past. People should learn to look forward. By the way, Xia Xiaohe, seeing that you're struggling, why don't I read you a story to relieve your boredom? Let's choose the ending chapter of the 27th volume of Jiangshan. In the face of Wang Lu's verbal offensive, the three of them naturally did not respond. They were all veterans who had experienced hundreds of battles and would not make mistakes in such a simple link. However, after half a day of protracted battle, it was Xia Xiaohe who was the first to lose her patience. Wang Lu, don't waste your energy. You can't win this battle. The girl's voice was still full of sincerity and concern, but in such a battlefield environment, it seemed a little gloomy and terrifying. I admit that you are indeed very powerful, but this game should be over. I'm tired of playing. While speaking, Xia Xiaohe waved her hand and recalled Bai and Xianemo to her side. The three of them formed a defensive formation. I have seen through your tricks. With the special effect of the gate of all realms connecting the myriad world, you deliberately attracted the laws of heaven and earth of other worlds, causing the laws of this place to be chaotic, making our immortal techniques ineffective, creating an absolute geographical advantage. It is indeed a creative idea that is amazing. This gate of all realms has existed in the hands of the immortals of the upper realm for countless years, but no one thought that it could be used like this. But then again, using the primordial treasure as a consumable, this kind of extravagant behavior can only be done by a barbarian from a different world like you. Wang Lu smiled when he heard this. Yes, of course, I can't care about whether it is extravagant or not. As long as I get rid of you bastards, no matter how big the price is, it's still a profit. But it's useless. Xia Xiaohe shrugged. The immortals of the upper realm are not just quiet girls like me who are not good at physical close combat. There are many people who have a close combat power that surpasses you. This kind of trap that disrupts the immortal techniques will be an obstacle to you, you smart visitor from the astral world. So, I want to kill you before those fierce men descend to the lower realm, and then completely close the passage between the two worlds, and then I can rest easy. Oh? This kind of passive and passive defensive idea doesn't suit you. I thought you would be like the previous sun booping, shouting slogans and rushing to fight to the death with us. Xia Xiaohe said, in fact, I personally suggest that you do your part as the successor of sun booping. It's better to fight us head-on like him. After all, it's better to get the pain over with. Seeing that you, the people of the lower realm, have been living in fear and shadow for so many years, I can't bear it. Yo, I can't believe that you look pure and beautiful, but you can actually put on a good show. Can't bear it? You're powerless, right? If you really have the ability, why don't you destroy the 9 regions now? Wang Lu sneered, I think it's you who can't afford to waste time. Although I don't want to admit this fact, if I'm not mistaken, the immortal world is about to be finished, right? The immortal world is indeed in a bit of trouble. When Xia Xiaohe heard this topic, she suddenly sighed and said, if you want to know the truth, it's better to come to the immortal world and see it for yourself. For an expert from a different world like you, we still have a big heart. Forget it, a gentleman doesn't stand under a collapsing wall. I'm not interested in a place that's about to be finished. With that, Wang Lu turned his eyes to Bai and Xianemo, so I'm also very curious about what the two of you are thinking. Instead of having a good future, you have to jump on a ship that's about to sink. This is even stupider than defecting to the demon race at the end of the war between immortals and demons. However, Bai and Xianemo could hardly hear what Wang Lu said. The immortal world was about to be finished? What nonsense was this guy talking about? That was a supreme world that was far more vast and powerful than 9 regions by tens of millions of times. The immortal world was also the ultimate dream of any cultivator. Even the inferior cultivators who were not talented enough and had no hope of obtaining the king pill would imagine the fantastic beauty of the immortal world. Similarly, It was also the supreme beauty that appeared in the dreams of Bai Zhe and Xian Mo countless times. No cultivator would not yearn for the immortal world, and no cultivator's ideal immortal world was not perfect. Even if it was the fallen immortals from the immortal world that brought endless disasters to 9 regions, people still would not doubt the beauty of the immortal world. However, now Wang Lu said that the immortal world was about to be finished? Incredible? But think about it, although we have been used to hearing the legends of the immortal world since we were young, who has actually been to the immortal world to take a look? Have you been there, or someone you know has been there? Apart from the fallen immortals, have you ever met any other visitors from the immortal world? Since you haven't, why do you think that the immortal world is infinitely beautiful, that most of the immortals are good, and that there are only a few black sheep? Because that's what my mother told me when I was a child? These questions made Bai Zhe and Xian Mo really speechless. With that, Wang Lu said with a smile, "The last question, if what I said just now is wrong, why didn't Miss Xia Xiaohe from the immortal world say a word for a long time? Doesn't she like to talk a lot? Don't tell me she just went to catch up with the new chapter." With that, Wang Lu looked solemn and said to Xia Xiaohe, "If the immortal world wasn't about to be finished, how could there be such a group of bored fools who came to the lower realm to fight to the death? The immortal world is infinitely vast and rich. What can't they find? Why do they have to come to this barren and narrow 9 regions? To put it bluntly, they are just looking for a haven." Xian Mo said in a daze, "In that case they can live in harmony with us. Why is there a purge? Women really lose their brains when they have a man. Don't you King clean up before you move to a new house? Clean up? Just for the sake of cleaning up, you want to exterminate all the creatures in 9 regions?" Wang Lu curled his lips and said, "I haven't seen you guys show mercy when you clean up the mosquitoes. You two have been drinking wine with her, so you should know how she and her place view the creatures in 9 regions, right? We are not the same species, and according to the thinking that those who are not of our race must have a different heart, do you expect them to treat us well? Are you guys really out of your minds? Your brain, which is not in good working condition, has been completely played by a young lady from the upper realm? That's really well said." Xia Xiaohe smiled until her eyes were squinted. "You really know how to talk. I really admire your eloquence. However, all of this is useless because of you. Thanks to your endless eloquence, I finally have enough time to complete my mission. The ferocious men from the upper realm that you've been waiting for a long time are about to arrive." At the same time, in the Blue River region, over the ruins of the former war, the light of a comet suddenly lit up. It's still a digression. The second PV competition of Tencent Animation is still in progress. Whether it can be animated or not depends on the ranking of this competition. If you want to see the moving Lioli, please pile up the votes of Spirit Sword Mountain to the top 3. One QQ account can cast 3 votes a day, so 1,000 people can cast 3,000 votes a day. Come on everyone. The voting address is http://comic. QQ. You can also search the second PV competition of Tencent Animation on Baidu. Thank you. Chapter 790. In the Underground World. Xia Xiaohe's voice was as gentle as water, but her expression gradually cooled down. "Wang Lu, this gate of all realms has indeed been used by you in a new way, but this thing has been treasured in the immortal world for thousands of years, and we have never used it so brutally. Of course there is a reason. You are very smart, but not smarter than everyone in the world, and you have to pay the price for being smart. I know, I used this gate of all realms so boldly in front of you, so it's inevitable that the power can't be restrained. I believe you have fully absorbed its power and forcibly opened the passage between the 2 worlds, right? You know? So you're planning to. You're really bold." At this moment, Xia Xiaohe's face suddenly changed. She waved her hand, bringing a shadow to cover herself. Bai Zhe and Xian Mo want to leave? Wang Lu also waved his hand, but it lit up the underground world. In the light, there was Xingjing Hichu's 9 regions map, Junhuang Kuqin's 10,000 army flag, and Kunlun Juri's universal ruler. More than half of the top powerhouses of the Wanxian League had actually gathered. In addition, there were also the top figures of the Dixian League, such as Lu Biechen and Luo Shui. The chaotic fight between the 4 people instantly became a feast for more than 100 people. "You actually gathered so much power here?" Wang Lu said, "In the face of the fierce man from the upper realm, these forces are not worth mentioning anyway. It's better to use them to encircle you. After all, it can increase the odds of winning. Now, can you show your true ability, Senior Xia Xiaohe?" "You know my identity?" Xia Xiaohe's soft voice penetrated from the shadow. "Did Kanglin tell you?" Including the secret of the immortal world, did he tell you? He really wants to say it. In order to ask me to give him a quick death, he can do anything now. Unfortunately, your restrictions on him are so strict that he can't say half a word about what he can't say. In the past many years, I have used one torture expert after another, but I have never been able to make him completely open his mouth. But on the other hand, there was no need for him to say it out loud. For example, I can now conclude that when the passage between the two realms is not fully opened, there will be strong restrictions for immortals to descend to the lower realm. Not only will the immortals in the lower realm have to endure a long period of weakness, but the upper realm will also have to bear great losses and risks. It's precisely because the cost of forcefully crossing realms is too great that immortals who descend to the lower realm have to go through a strict selection process. This is the rule. Yet you can freely follow behind Kanglin and break the rules to descend. Your status must be extraordinary. So, taking down a strict and tight-lipped Kanglin has allowed the 9 regions to enjoy great benefits in the past 15 years. What if we can take down an unruly Xia Xiaohe? With that, Wang Lu waved his hand and said, "Do it. I want her alive." In the next moment, thousands of rays of light lit up the ground, and countless celestial treasures dazzled like a galaxy. For a moment, even the gate of all realms dimmed. However, the shadow that covered the 3 people remained unmoved. Ah! In the shadow, Xia Xiaohe laughed wildly and said, "Wang Lu, you're really an interesting person. This is the first time I've seen someone as interesting as you. You're much more interesting than all the novels." "You flatter me." With that, Wang Lu took a step forward. His 3,000 meters tall body carried the power of the supreme of 9 regions, which made thousands of celestial treasures retreat to the side. Then he raised his arm high and threw a heavy punch. The giant divine weapon with 60% synchronization rate had magical ability in every move. When the heavy punch fell, the surrounding 5 elements were all disordered, which caused many immortal treasures to shake and lose their brilliance. Although Wang Lu said that he wanted them alive, his punch was merciless, as if he wanted to crush the 3 people in the shadow to pieces and never reincarnate. This punch seemed to be fast, but it also seemed to be extremely long. In the eyes of everyone, they could clearly see the mountain-like heavy punch falling down. The wind from the punch set off stormy waves under the ground. The rocks and soil seemed to be weightless. Although they were swept away by the shock wave, every visible and invisible wave under the ground was discernible. However, in this process, everyone was shocked to find that only their consciousness could operate, but their bodies could not move at all. Finally, the heavy punch landed, and the impact was thousands of times stronger than before. The wave instantly spread for hundreds of miles, thousands of miles, to the ground. As a result, the mountains on the ground collapsed and the rivers poured down, just like the scene of the end of the world. At the same time, the Wisdom King city on the ground had already swayed its body and slowly floated up. Together with the underground part, it was like a spear piercing through the sky, avoiding the shock of the ground. On the top floor of the tower-like city, a middle-aged man in luxurious clothes walked into the room in front of him with a slightly nervous look. Not long ago, it was his office, the supreme place that symbolized the leader of the Wisdom King city. But at this time, it was requisitioned for free, and he did not dare to complain. Reporting to the High Immortal, the creatures around the Dragonhorn Mountain have been taken in. Behind the desk, a young cultivator bent over the desk and wrote at a fast speed. He nodded slightly when he heard the report. "Well done. Thanks to the help of the High Immortals, we were able to avoid this natural disaster in time." As the middle-aged man spoke, he couldn't help but wipe the sweat on his head with a handkerchief. He was born fat, so he sweated more easily when he was nervous. "Great kindness, the young man said, "We, the immortals and mortals, this is a matter of course, no need to thank us." After a pause, he didn't say what was in his heart. This catastrophe was basically caused by the immortal cultivators. Even if the creatures were taken in time and didn't cause misery and suffering, the loss was inevitable. What was there to thank? However, there was no need to say these words to others, even if it was the Lord of Wisdom King City, the richest man in the Wang family village many years ago. Just as he was thinking, suddenly a person rushed in from outside the door with an anxious face. "Hai Yun Fan. Wang Lu just sent a message, asking us to rise another 100 miles. 100 miles higher, that's close to the astral wind area. He said that there will be Dixin's help, the sooner the better." Hai Yun Fan nodded. "Understood, I will urgently take off." Turning his head, he asked, "City Lord, have you heard what I just said?" The middle-aged man nodded. "I will let my men cooperate fully." After that, he turned around and trotted out of the room. But when he went out, he was a little confused. Wang Lu. Why does this name sound so familiar? Under the Wisdom King City, the earth-shattering punch of the giant divine soldier finally drew the curtain to the battle. Not bad, this punch is very masculine, it makes me look at you in a new light. You too, it's beyond my expectation. The giant divine soldier, which was thousands of meters tall, still maintained the posture of a heavy punch. From time to time, the aftermath of the underground world still caused the collapse of earth and rocks, and the violent movement of the spiritual energy of heaven and earth also brought about various strange phenomena. But the focus of the battlefield had shifted to the shoulder of the giant divine soldier. A shadow shrouded his ear, and he whispered to Wang Lu. You've guessed correctly. My status is indeed extraordinary, but you probably haven't guessed that my status is extraordinary. Humph, to be able to avoid the godly fist and forcefully carve out a bloody path in this formation to reach here, of course you're not an ordinary person. There shouldn't be many people like you in the immortal world, right? Ah, not many? Even if you search all over the world, I am unique. For the sake of the punch just now, I will give you one last hint. The current master of the immortal world is called Xiaoyu. You? So you can't win, but it doesn't matter, I like you very much and I will save your life. Let's be friends then. The next moment, the shadow on the shoulder of the giant divine soldier disappeared without a trace. Wang Lu snorted, but in the end he didn't make any more movements. Instead, he slowly shrank his figure and returned to his original body. He too, Kuchin, and the others naturally surrounded him. How is it? Did you catch her? Although the people present were all at the level of Supreme or even Dixian with unique vision, no one could see the change at the last moment. Wang Lu's punch contained a lot of magical power, and Xia Xiaohe's response to this heavy punch was beyond their understanding. At this time, Wang Lu's face was devoid of joy and sorrow, and they really couldn't see the result. Wang Lu shook his head and said, She ran away. Ran away. Supreme Jury was a bit incredulous. He looked at the universal ruler in his hand again and said, I just nailed it here, how could she? Don't show off the means of 9 regions in front of true immortals. The providence of 9 regions can be seized by others, so what about immortal treasures and magical powers? Supreme Qinluan frowned and asked, Although this battle came in a hurry, we have calculated many times before that no matter what changes there are, we should be able to cope with it. How could we let her run away? There's a mistake in the calculation. This guy's background is beyond our expectation. Xia Xiao. By the way, who among you is the best at history? Supreme Jury and Immortal Luo Shui stood up at the same time. Who has heard of Xiaoyu? The two were silent for a while and then shook their heads. Tiske, a nameless nobody, huh? Forget it, now is not the time to care about this. Xia Xiaohe has run away, so we have to worry about the situation on the other side of the passage. When this topic was brought up, several Supremes and Dixians suddenly understood. Yes, what about the passage? Wang Lu, isn't it too reckless for you to let the passage open? Instead of waiting for them to open the passage when they are in perfect condition, it's better to open an opening first. Even if it's just to explore the real situation, we 9 regions have been training for 15 years, so it's time for us to fight an actual battle. At the same time, a crack appeared over the quiet swamp in the savage land. There were endless ferociousness in the depths of the crack, but at this time, it was blocked by a person with a sword, unable to take even half a step out. What did Wang Lu say? The woman in white held the sword in her right hand and touched her forehead with her left hand, thinking hard. Oh yes, it's this sentence. No one has ever been able to cross my sword defense. With that, her eyes were like a sword, pointing to the depths of the crack. Are you guys going to try it? Tencent Animation's PV competition is still in progress. Please continue to vote for it. The voting address is http comic QQ. Comside or Baidu search for the second PV competition of Tencent Animation. Thank you. Chapter 791. Blue River Region Scar in the Sky. In the deep passage, the ferocious beasts from the upper realm were crowded together, unable to advance or retreat. Motherf asterisk Kerr, are those idiots in front F asterisk King crazy? Don't block the door. Which idiot behind is spouting shit? If you have the guts, then come and try. There's a monster outside. Whoever goes will die. F asterisk CKU? What kind of monster can there be in a lower realm? And aren't you a F asterisk King monster? You're the monster, your whole family are monsters. Stop F asterisk King arguing. Those in the front, hurry up and change into your defensive magic weapons and rush forward. Don't be afraid of death. Open up the passage so that our brothers in the back can come out and support you. None of us can afford to be stuck here and delay the important matters. Who do you think you are to command me? F*CKU, I'm thinking for you. Devil bastard, who knows what your intentions are? If you dare to call me devil bastard again, I'll kill you right now. So what if I say it? Devil bastard, bastard bastard whose home has been destroyed. Don't think that you can turn things around after you come to the immortal world and follow your master. Bastards will always be bastards. F*CKU? Don't fight in the passage. Do you want to kill everyone? F*CK, which idiot is still fighting? F*CK, the warping effect of the passage is getting stronger. Do you really want to commit suicide? F*CK, even if I die, I'll drag you bastards down with me. Go to hell. F*CK, which son of AB*TCH is releasing flying swords? F*CK, we can't fight this battle anymore. Not only is there a monster in front, but there's also a group of bastards behind us. Brothers, let's clean up this group of bastards first. At the other end of the scar in the sky, a man and a woman stood in the dazzling light, looking at the chaos in the passage with contempt. The man in the dazzling light had an abnormally burly body. He crossed his arms in front of his chest, and his thick arms were covered in lightning. Shueyu, look down there. A bastard will always be a bastard. What an ugly sight. The girl named Shueyu was also extremely dissatisfied. Leitian, you're right. These bastards are an eyesore. The people up there must be sick in the head. Finding these bastards to be the vanguard will only drag the big picture down. This passageway isn't stable to begin with, and with them messing around like this. Before he could finish his sentence, someone beside him snorted coldly, if we don't use this bunch of bastards as the vanguard, do you think we should use the two of you? Both the man and the woman were startled. They quickly turned to the third person and cupped their hands to salute, Senior Immortal Paksu. The third person was also shrouded in the brilliant light, but his figure was blurry and indistinct. Even his voice could not be distinguished as a man or a woman, but the impatience in his tone was very obvious. What's wrong? What are these bastards doing blocking the passageway? Lei Tian hurriedly replied, Immortal Sovereign, it seems that the other end of the passage has been blocked. Blocked? Although it's just a group of bastards, they are also elite slave soldiers collected from all over the world. If they were in the current 9 regions, they should be the top level. Could it be that the people of 9 regions learned the news in advance and set up an inescapable net at the exit? How many people are there in the passage? Immortal Sovereign, it seems that. Lei Tian suddenly broke out in a cold sweat, and his burly body trembled as he said, there's only one person, what a joke. Senior Immortal Paksu's anger surged, and then he opened his immortal eyes. His eyes directly crossed the long and deep passageway between the 2 worlds and saw the 9 regions. He saw a woman in white holding a single sword, propping up a motionless sword defense. The sword defense stretched for several miles and completely enveloped the crack in the sky, leaving no gap. The slave soldiers in the passage were blocked at the exit, unable to move even half a step. These servant soldiers were collected by the immortal world after thousands of years of destroying countless worlds. They were able to fight after layers of elimination. There were the old royal family of the devil race, the spirit beasts and monsters captured by the fallen immortals in the lower realm, and the chaotic monsters suppressed in the boundless world. Although they were bastards, they were still the bastards of the immortal world. Any one of them was enough to set off a natural disaster in the 9 regions. This had been tested more than 100 years ago. That was when he personally threw a 9-tailed fox through a gap that was accidentally opened. Then, the fox, whose state was far from perfect, almost destroyed one of the most prestigious immortal cultivation sects in 9 regions. Today, in the passage between the 2 worlds, there were countless existences that were more tyrannical than the 9-tailed fox, but they were stopped by an inexplicable woman alone. Was it because the expectations of these bastards were too high over the years? Or was there something mysterious about this woman? Senior Immortal Paksu narrowed his eyes slightly and focused his gaze even more, trying to see through the woman's real situation. However, his eyes stopped abruptly at the sword defense and could no longer penetrate it. Senior Immortal Paksu's anger was slightly restrained and turned into surprise. A mere lowly creature from the lower realm could actually block his sight with the sword defense. No wonder the hundreds of slave soldiers in the passage could not move. Unexpectedly, after the Age of Chaos, there was still such a person in 9 regions. Senior Immortal Paksu immediately became very interested in her. The Great Purge plan in 9 regions was imperative, but it did not prevent him from collecting several rare pets for himself in the process. As for this woman in white, she looked much more interesting than any of the pets in his cage. Very well, I'll go and see for myself. With that, he stepped forward and was ready to enter the passage. The man and the woman were both surprised and said, "But Senior Immortal Xiaoyao said that no immortal can enter the passage without his order." "Humph, when the time comes, let Xiaoyao himself come and tell me." "What a joke, apart from His Majesty the Immortal King, who else is qualified to give me orders?" Lei Tian and Shui Wei exchanged glances. Naturally, no one dared to stop Senior Immortal Paksu. Among the first rank of Senior Immortal, Paksu's strength could be ranked in the top 3, which was a bit stronger than Kanglin Immortal who came to the lower realm 15 years ago. Although Senior Immortal Xiaoyao had a respectable status, he couldn't order him. More importantly, Paksu was cold-blooded and bloodthirsty, and he had repeatedly attacked his own people. Therefore they should report this matter back to Senior Immortal Xiaoyao and let him decide. At this time, Senior Immortal Paksu was not interested in wasting too much energy on the 2 pawns. He turned his eyes back to the passage and soon let out a sneer. This passage was opened in a hurry, so it can't accommodate the immortal's body to pass through. Forcibly descending to the lower realm will greatly weaken oneself. 15 years ago that idiot Kanglin suffered a big loss. Therefore this time Xiaoyao let the unhindered bastards explore the way first. But it's too much of a hindrance. Ha! I say these bastards are too much of a hindrance. You two go and tell Xiaoyao that I've helped him clean up the garbage. Both Lei Tian and Shui Wei had an ominous premonition of extreme danger. They wanted to say something but it was too late. The next moment, a green ball of light rose from the palm of Senior Immortal Paksu. He held it in front of him and gently blew it. The clear immortal spirit that flowed out of Senior Immortal Paksu's body turned into a gust of wind, which blew the green ball forward. The speed was not fast and very quiet. However, when Lei Tian and Shui Wei saw the ball of light, they showed a look of horror and could not help but retreat. This was the unique skill of Senior Immortal Paksu: break. Break soldiers, break people, break armies, break boundaries, break all things in the world. This ball of light contained a trace of the truth that Senior Immortal Paksu realized when he witnessed the destruction of countless worlds. For people like Lei Tian and Shui Wei, just seeing the ball of light could cause them to be infected with misfortune. Of course, the two of them did not dare to look at it again. Before they retreated far enough, they saw the green ball of light fly lightly into the passage. Then, in the passage, the noisy shouting of the servant soldiers came to an abrupt end. The messy fluctuations of power also subsided. Oh, it's much quieter now. The corner of Senior Immortal Paksu's mouth twitched, and then his figure shrank sharply. The layer of falsehood on his body also weakened a bit, revealing his true face vaguely. However, before Lei Tian and Shui Wei could see it clearly, he had already walked into the passage, leaving only his back. From the corner of their eyes, the two of them saw that there was nothing in the passage. In front of Senior Immortal Paksu was a spacious avenue. The more than 500 servant soldiers that were originally jammed inside had disappeared without a trace. Lei Tian trembled all over and looked at the back of Senior Immortal Paksu incredulously. He had actually, casually destroyed 500 servant soldiers with a single break. Previously, the servant soldiers were blocked in front of the passage. Although there were many casualties when they attacked the sword defense, the actual death rate was only 10 or 20 people. But now they were completely wiped out by their own people. And the total number of servant soldiers in the immortal world was only 2,000. This fellow was too audacious. Quick, go and report to Senior Immortal Xiaoyao. Let him tell His Majesty that Paksu is simply acting recklessly. In the passage, Senior Immortal Paksu sneered indifferently. So what if he told His Majesty? It was just 500 pieces of trash. After breaking the 9 regions, there were as many of them as he wanted. But now what he needed to care about was the other side. Senior Immortal Paksu walked to the exit at the end of the passage and saw the woman who aroused his interest at a close distance. He was a little surprised. In front of him was not the expected Mahayana Peak who had half a foot across the immortal gate, but an insignificant little king pill? But soon, Senior Immortal Paksu turned his surprise into a stronger interest. It's actually an outside path. What a surprise. There was no other explanation except for the outside path. The law of the immortal path would not allow a king pill to have the power to contend against the servant soldiers. This was really a pleasant surprise and a bumper harvest. Senior Immortal Paksu had been tired of seeing those well-behaved immortal cultivators. He himself was an immortal, so he was very clear about the starting point and the end of this path. But the outside path was endlessly wonderful. When the immortal world fought from south to north and destroyed the world, he excitedly served as the vanguard and risked his life because the taste of crushing those enemies with unknown power in his hands was really wonderful. Now, there was no longer an unknown world in the area that the immortal world could reach, and all the enemies had been crushed by the immortal world. Although the Great Purge of 9 regions was important, it was not a difficult and exciting task because it was the origin of the immortal world. Now, it seemed that he had underestimated this land. In his joy, Senior Immortal Paksu for the first time had a compassionate heart. "Are you interested in being part of my collection?" The woman in white opposite him looked at him with a shocked face. "Idiot, are you drunk? Add more." Asking for votes for the PV competition. Please vote for Spirit Sword Mountain in the second PV competition of Tencent Animation. After the long animation you can see Luli sitting on it and moving by herself. Don't miss this opportunity. One QQ account can cast 3 votes a day. Thank you for your hard work in the past few days. Thank you. Voting address, http, ACQQ. Cumbent 2015. HTML. Chapter 792. I really had a dog to choose this kind of pain in the ass task. It's fine if it's a group of monsters, but now even a psychopath has popped up. Are there any good people in the immortal world? In the crack in the sky, Wang Wu single-handedly withstood the surging army of the immortal world. Naturally, she was under great pressure. If it was anyone else, with the true immortals of the upper realm in front and the 9 regions behind them, if they could not guard this pass, it was likely that the people would be plunged into misery and suffering, and they would lose everything. Perhaps the psychological pressure alone was enough to crush a person. Of course, Wang Wu would also be under pressure, but her pressure mainly came from one point. At the beginning, Wang Lu promised her that if she stayed in the crack in the sky and repelled the enemy, she would be rewarded with 10 million spirit stones. For this number, she argued with Wang Lu for a long time and raised it step by step from 500,000 to 10 million. In fact, even if it was 10 million per person, Wang Lu would still make a profit. To be able to repel a true immortal, the Wuxia League would be willing to pay 100 million spirit stones. However, no one expected that the immortals of the upper realm would actually send a large number of miscellaneous soldiers as the vanguard. Just now, how many people did Wang Wu block in the crack in the sky? 100? 200? Or even 1,000? In theory, Wang Wu really got rich overnight. However, from a practical point of view, Wang Wu didn't believe that Wang Lu would honestly pay, and how much discount would she get in the end? This was really a bit stressful. As for the sudden appearance of this idiot, Wang Wu actually didn't care at all. Until the other party made his move. In fact, Wang Wu didn't see how the other party made his move. In the blink of an eye, the non-phase sword defense that blocked the crack in the sky was shattered. And Wang Wu didn't have the time to carefully understand the feedback force transmitted by the sword in her hand. Because when she realized it, she had already fallen into the quiet swamp, surrounded by stinking mud and ferocious swamp vegetation. Her mind was in a trance, and the scenery in front of her also had double images. Years of actual combat made Wang Wu realize that she had been beaten silly. In just one round, the other party broke the non-phase sword defense and then knocked her into the quiet swamp. F***CK, without any hesitation or wavering, Wang Wu flew back into the air. At the crack in the sky, the arrogant immortal was still standing there, completely wasting the opportunity he had just created. Seeing that Wang Wu had returned in an instant, a hint of approval appeared on the immortal's face, and he opened his mouth to say something. Of course, Wang Wu wouldn't give him any chance. Stinking idiot, get lost. The Xingjing sect's immortal sword, known for its toughness and swiftness, was held behind her back while her left hand clenched into a fist. Senior Immortal Paksu was a little surprised, but he only felt funny about this punch. He was truly a lowly bastard from the lower dimensions who didn't know what was good for him. However, this sort of unreasonable stupidity could be considered to have a unique charm. He had been fighting all over the place for many years, and the private collection in the cave was innumerable, but there were only a few that could really pique his interest. First break her hand, then slowly dismember her body and let her collapse in pain? Or imprison her with a great immortal technique and wash away her stubbornness with a long period of time. After thinking about it, there were tens of thousands of different methods. Senior Immortal Paksu was already very familiar with these skills, because he had practiced them on too many people and had never failed. Once in a narrow world, he encountered a group of special creatures who looked highly similar to human beings. Their thinking was clear and pure, but they were tenacious and unyielding. The immortal world almost killed the entire world until not even a blade of grass could grow in it. There were 30 million special creatures in that world, but after the war, only 1 out of 100 survived. Although they became prisoners of war, few of them gave up resistance. In the Immortal's cave of Senior Immortal Paksu, there happened to be an individual who surrendered to him. She was a character similar to a princess or a saintess in the tribe. Paksu personally captured her on the battlefield and then tortured her in the Immortal's cave for 500 years, wearing down every bit of her will to resist, but did not kill her spirituality. In the end, it became an amazing and exquisite collection, which would not make people tired of it even after 1,000 years. However, after 1,000 years, no matter how exquisite the toy was, it would decay. It was time to replace it with a new one. This time perhaps he could try other methods such as, bang. A powerful fist interrupted Senior Immortal Paksu's train of thought. When he came back to his senses, Paksu found that he had returned to the other end of the passage. The scene in front of him was hazy and could not be seen clearly. His brain was dizzy and there was a burning feeling on the bridge of his nose which seemed very strange. Was it pain? Yes, it was pain. How many years had it been since someone could leave pain on his immortal body? He almost couldn't remember them all. What happened just now? Senior Immortal Paksu closed his eyes and circulated his immortal spirit all over his body. The answer he got made him shocked and angry. He was sent flying back by a punch. That lowly creature from the lower realm actually punched through his body protection immortal technique, and the fist was firmly printed on his face, which damaged his immortal body. In an instant, his anger surged, and there was no trace of pity for the collection. A mere lowly creature. In order to vent his anger, Senior Immortal Paksu released several immortal techniques, which set off a natural disaster at the entrance of the Immortal World Passage. Fortunately, Shueiyue and Lei Tian went far enough when they retreated, so they were not affected. After releasing his anger, Senior Immortal Paksu calmed down. He was not in a hurry to return to the other end of the passage to fight with Wang Wu again. The punch just now was both a humiliation and a warning. That woman was indeed a bit powerful, and there was an elusive magical ability hidden in her body. When he came to the lower realm, in order to adapt to the passage, he suppressed his power by more than 80%. In terms of quantity, he was not much different from Kanglin when he came to the lower realm. However, his skill in using his power was much better. He was confident that he was invincible in 9 regions, but, of course, he could go there again and double his strength. In theory, the woman just now was not worth mentioning at all. However, he felt that the problem might not be that simple. Thinking about it carefully, a lot of time had passed since the opening of the passage between the 2 realms and the appearance of the crack in the sky in 9 regions. Wasn't their reaction too simple? Even if there was no death to a mortal array of 1,000 people, at least they could set up the geomancy of the galaxy to wash the 9 regions, right? How much confidence did they have in a woman from the heretic path to block them all by herself? What was the origin of that woman? Thinking of this, Senior Immortal Paksu became calmer and calmer. However, his thinking could only go so far. After all, he was not good at this. In the past, when he encountered problems in the expedition, it was Senior Immortal Xiaoyao who thought of countermeasures and then asked him to carry them out. In this matter, he didn't want to find Xiaoyao. It was not because of his face but because of that woman he didn't want others to know. Therefore, after a moment of thinking, Senior Immortal Paksu re-entered the passage. "It's you again?" When Wang Wu saw Senior Immortal Paksu, she was surprised and said, "Are you not obedient?" Paksu smiled and then his figure flashed. Wang Wu's sword defense was propped up as if she had foreseen it. However, as soon as the golden sword defense appeared, it was broken. Wang Wu exclaimed and then her figure flashed. With this flash, she flashed 50 miles away before she could barely block Paksu. Then Wang Wu no longer talked nonsense. The slender immortal sword in her hand chopped straight like a machete. However, Senior Immortal Paksu didn't dodge. His eyes were locked on the immortal sword. Crash! The immortal sword was broken, and the immortal spirit in the sword fled in a hurry. It was wrapped by Wang Wu's hair and protected inside her body. Wang Wu's eyes turned red in an instant, and her anger surged. The reward for repelling the enemy was 10 million gold, but how much was the value of an immortal sword that was painstakingly made by a master refiner of Shengjing sect? Regardless of the outcome of this battle, she would suffer a big loss. For now, there was only one way to recover the loss. "Bastard, I'm going to make you into a specimen." Senior Immortal Paksu was also shocked. Just now, he used the immortal technique of break and easily destroyed an immortal sword. This kind of method was absolutely unheard of in 9 regions. Moreover, the other party, a sword cultivator, destroyed her immortal sword, which meant that her strength was at least halved. Where did she get the confidence to continue to fight with him? Just because of that unexpected punch of hers? However, the next moment, Senior Immortal Paksu found that he seemed to have misjudged the other party's means. Because with just a wave of Wang Wu's hand, the lush mountain forest within a radius of hundreds of miles began to sway regularly. Then, countless trees rose from the ground and flew into the air, like a falling rainstorm. These trees were basically ordinary trees, but in the process of rising into the air, they were purified by her power and turned into simple wooden swords. Wang Wu took one of them. The moment the wooden sword touched her hand, it was infused with immortal charm and turned into a sharp weapon. What a beautiful method. Senior Immortal Paksu could not help but sigh with emotion. This method of turning mortals into immortals was not that amazing, because the refined sword was only at the level of spiritual treasure at most. Moreover, the texture was too brittle, so it was likely that it could only be used once. However, it was really rare for her to refine it so quickly. Moreover, it seemed that she was able to refine it without any consumption. Although the quality of the wooden sword was poor, it was enough to make up for it with the thousands of wooden swords as the material. At this moment, his anger was replaced by the love of talent. This toy was really rare. If he accidentally broke it, he didn't know when he could find the next one. No, perhaps there would never be the next one. After the 9 regions, the situation faced by the immortal world would be very different. Therefore, Senior Immortal Paksu did not fight with Wang Wu anymore but chose to retreat. Now that he had passed through the passage, he would be free and unfettered in the 9 regions. Why should he spend all his fun at this time? Goodbye. Paksu left behind an evil smile. His figure, like a dreamy bubble, disappeared along with Wang Wu's slash, never to be seen again. *CK. Wang Wu was furious. She swept her sword, which created a shocking wave. Hundreds of mountains around her were cut off. At the same time, the wooden sword in her hand was broken into powder. Her clenched fingers could not help but become weak, and her nails pierced into her palm. Dark red blood immediately dripped out, but Wang Wu felt that it was the blood of her heart that flowed out. According to the original agreement, the reward for repelling the enemy was 10 million yuan, and if one was leaked, of course there would be a fine. Wang Wu took a deep breath and then flashed back to the crack in the sky. No one should have seen what just happened, right? Wang Wu looked around guiltily. Fortunately, she didn't see anyone. However, the next moment, someone's voice sounded in her ear. Well, no one else saw it except me. What the *CK. Continue to ask for recommendation tickets for the PV competition http ACQQ. Cumbent 2015. 1 QQ gets 3 tickets a day. Please hold on until June 3rd. After the successful animation, the novel will try to add passionate content. Please look forward to it. Chapter 793. In other words, your virginity was broken by his one punch. *T. What kind of hearing is that? It's broken. How much strength did you use at that time? 60 to 70%. Don't look at me, I can't always use my full strength. I can't hold it and I can't hold it. Moreover, that grandson is really powerful. You should know that non-phase sword defense is basically impossible to break. Even if I only used 60 to 70% of my strength, it shouldn't be broken so quickly. Although I was a bit distracted at that time, but in addition, he can break your light spirit feather in one glance. Yes, you know the quality of the light spirit feather. It can be maintained in the heavenly tribulation, but it was broken into 17 pieces by him with one glance. *T. Using his eyes to kill an immortal sword, is this the demon eye of death? In short, this can be reimbursed, right? Sure, I'll settle your fine after I've settled it. Aha, I remember we agreed that the reward for one person who repels the enemy is 10 million, and then I repelled thousands of people. Well, according to the agreement, 10 million per person is based on no omission. You missed one on the first day and it's obviously a big fish, so according to the agreement, hey, you and I are master and disciple, you don't have to calculate the accounts so clearly, right? Let's talk about feelings, okay? Rest assured, I won't give you less. It's not like I'm paying out of my own pocket, I won't be stingy. *T. Were you deliberately teasing me just now? TSK, you didn't do your job well and missed an important big fish. Let alone teasing you, so what if I flirt with you? You have the leisure to do this kind of pain in the ass thing? Does it mean that the fish I missed is actually not that important? Oh, I also hope that it's not that important, but unfortunately, it is indeed a big fish. It will take some effort to cover it up with the Wuxia League. But it doesn't matter, you are the candidate recommended by me. If they have any opinions, they will come to me, and no one dares to have any opinions about me. Stop acting tough. You missed out on Xia Xiaohe and I missed out on a freakish true immortal. Now, the two major targets of the immortal plane have both been missed out. Do you still expect those people to be obedient to you? On the other hand, the situation is so bad now. If they don't rely on me, are they courting death? As long as there are no strong competitors, the more dangerous the situation, the more stable my position will be. As for competitors, after so many years there shouldn't be any. Wang Lu said this in a righteous manner. In the face of a crisis, as long as the leader was not a hopelessly muddle-headed person, then the internal struggle for power would only cause excessive internal friction. Wang Lu never minded showing his ruthlessness to such opportunists who did not know what was good for them. The title of the #1 person in 9 regions was not carried by a flowery sedan chair, but by Wang Lu with the bones of countless people in the past 15 years. With Tetragon, the vast majority of Dixian were on his side. Some of these Dixian were used to being free and unfettered and did not listen to orders, but there were also some die-hard ones. For the sake of Sun Buping's successor and Tetragon's face, they obeyed Wang Lu. The power of these people was enough to sweep the heavenly sage hall. And this was the team that Wang Lu could really deter 9 regions. Coupled with the endless army of Zaku in the Red Sea underwater workshop, the position of the #1 person in 9 regions was really stable. Seeing that Wang Lu was full of confidence on this issue, Wang Wu no longer persuaded him. She just propped up the sword defense again and tightly sealed the crack in the sky. What are you going to do with the 2 fish that escaped the net? I've asked Tetragon to take people to look for them. They have been dealing with the fallen immortals for the longest time, so this kind of thing can only be left to them. Wang Wu thought about it and found that there was no better way, so she asked, "What about me?" Wang Lu patted her on the shoulder and said, "Hero, hold on. I'll hold on to your whole family." Wang Wu immediately jumped up. Wang Lu hurriedly appeased her, "The more people blocking the door here, the better. Any array based on the cooperation of many people is full of flaws in the eyes of the immortals. More people will hinder each other. So the best way is to block the door alone. Right now, only you and I can do this in 9 regions, but I really can't get away now." "Ha, do you think I'm as stupid as Luli? Would I believe anything you say? You bitch. I've long seen that you and Tetragon have been in cahoots with each other all these years, and you're planning to kill me, the legal wife." Wang Lu was also shocked and said, "I really regret leaving my inheritance to you." "What the hell, you actually have the nerve to say that? In those days I was such a pure and lovely girl, but I was brainwashed by your happy theory and became like this. After so many years of debauchery. No, miserable degeneration, how could you have the nerve to put all the blame on me?" Being rebuked by this, Wang Lu was stunned for a long time and couldn't say a word. He could only sigh in his heart that this person's lower limit had surpassed him. The stubborn and simple little Wang Wu had really disappeared in the long river of history forever. Fortunately, the awkward silence did not last too long. Once again, there was a terrifying fluctuation in the passage ahead, and a new round of invasion from the immortal world began again. It was still a sea of miscellaneous soldiers, and judging from their aura, their strength was 1 level stronger than the last time. Wang Wu immediately put away her expression, and a simple but sharp wooden sword appeared in her hand. "Okay, go and do your thing. Remember to pay the bill when you come back, and by the way, help me call Nancy and the others over. My king pill is not enough." Hearing the last name, Wang Lu's face slightly darkened and said, "Okay. I'll trouble you here." After that, Wang Lu's figure flashed away, leaving Wang Wu alone to face the turbulent waves ahead. In the passage, a new round of servant soldiers had been assembled. This time, the servant soldiers were in good order, because they had an additional backbone among them. A lithe woman stood in the middle of the demons, and her independent temperament seemed incompatible with the violence around her. A blood-red crystal gem lit up on her forehead, and she looked coldly at the other side of the passage. Then she raised her chin and pointed her slender finger to the front. Thus, the demon army of the myriad worlds surged forward. Wang Wu laughed out loud. Her wooden sword moved forward, facing that tender fingertip. Trash from the upper realm, come and accompany Big Sister to relieve her boredom. Central Region, Mount Qi. It was quiet outside the Mount Qi school. Since 5 years ago, the feng shui of this place had gradually declined, fewer and fewer tourists came and went, and the cultivators in the mountain gradually migrated out, which made the human population more and more withered. In recent years, even the spiritual veins of the earth showed signs of exhaustion, which was a complete scene of decline. All of this was thanks to Xia Xiaohe. She had been an otaku girl in Mount Qi for 10 years, harmless to humans and animals. However, after the incident, everyone in Mount Qi was shocked. living with a fallen immortal day and night for 10 years without knowing anything? Even they themselves didn't believe it. After Xia Xiaohe came out of the mountain, she easily instigated two powerful characters in Dixian. Could she have been idle in the past 10 years? How many people had been instigated by her to defect to the enemy? No one could say for sure. After that, although the Wanxian League didn't deliberately pursue it, the people of Mount Qi themselves couldn't sit still, let alone others. Mount Qi, once a tourist attraction, soon became notorious, so it was reasonable for it to decline. However, on this day there was a guest outside the Mount Qi school. The man was dressed in an exquisite fine silk gown, which made him look like a scholar who had passed the examination. He walked up the steps along the mountain road of Mount Qi. His pace was neither fast nor slow until he stopped in front of the mountain gate. His breath was not chaotic at all, and then he gently knocked on the door knocker. Inside the Mount Qi school, an old cultivator came to open the door and was surprised to see that there was still a guest visiting at this time. "I'm here to see your sect leader." With that, the scholar handed over a Mount Qi token. The gatekeeper received the token with awe and led the scholar into the mountain gate. Although the scholar seemed to be just an ordinary person, the person who held the Mount Qi token was like the sect leader himself, so he didn't dare to be careless. Although many people were no longer optimistic about the future of Mount Qi, he was tied here for a lifetime and couldn't leave. Even if the Mount Qi school leader was now down and out, wouldn't it be easy to kill a gatekeeper like him? Not long after, he stepped on the mountain's array and took the scholar to change more than a dozen mountains in a row. Finally, he saw the lake house where the sect leader lived. This small room built in the lake at the top of the mountain was the residence of the Mount Qi school's sect leader who had been passed down for thousands of years. When a cultivator approached this place, they could feel the spirit of the mountains and rivers. However, the closer the old cultivator got, the heavier the pressure he felt, and he could hardly stand up straight. "Go down?" The sect leader's voice was as clear as the lake water, making the old cultivator feel as if he had been granted amnesty. He almost ran away. He didn't even notice the mortal scholar beside him, completely ignoring the pressure of this place. After the old cultivator left, the scholar smiled and cupped his hands towards the center of the lake. "Greetings, little princess." Then the bamboo door of the lake house opened, and a woman came out with a look of interest. When she saw the scholar, she couldn't help but laugh. "Paksu, what are you trying to do? It doesn't suit you at all to behave like a civilized man." Paksu smiled and said, "Little princess, please don't laugh at me. Now that I'm in the enemy's territory, I have to be careful and do some disguise work. Tieske, I haven't seen you for a while. How did you become like that guy Xiaoyao? You even speak like a sissy? Do you think I don't know who you are? We've been playing together since childhood. When you went crazy and destroyed a world, I pleaded with my father to save you." Paksu's smile suddenly disappeared, and then he shook his head. "Xiaohe, to tell you the truth, I'm a little injured." "Injured? You?" Xia Xiaohe's smile disappeared. Her figure flashed to Paksu's side, and her pair of beautiful eyes looked back and forth at him. "Who hurt you? What kind of injury is it that I can't see?" Paksu knew that the person in front of him looked a little careless and didn't care about anything, but the consequence of offending her was more serious than offending Xiaoyao. In particular, he couldn't deceive her. He had no choice but to say helplessly, "It's not a physical injury. It's an injury caused by love." Paksu knew that Xia Xiaohe was not satisfied with this answer, so he had to bite the bullet and said, "I've taken a fancy to a collection. These days I can't eat or drink. It seems that I'm possessed. Thank you to Piao Hong, the Great Alliance Master and Spy 007. The Alliance Master's correction is in urgent preparation. Please look forward to it." Chapter 794. In the lakeside house of Mount Qi School in Central Region, Xia Xiaohe looked at Senior Immortal Paksu with stern eyes, which made the latter feel helpless. "Tell me honestly, what's wrong with you? I'm not joking with you. This time I've indeed been possessed by an inner demon." "What a joke. There are at least 80,000 inner demons that have been crippled by you. How can a person like you have inner demons?" Xia Xiaohe laughed disdainfully, but soon realized that something was wrong. "Are you serious?" Paksu said, "Very serious. I have always been serious about my feelings. You know me." Xia Xiaohe remained silent and did not speak. She thought to herself that this childhood sweetheart was indeed serious about love, but his feelings were twisted. He would never like anyone. He would only like collectibles, or rather, he would only turn the things he liked into collectibles. The more he loved it, the more he had to go through countless processes to finally make it into a shocking collection. He remembered that a long time ago when he showed his collection room to a few immortal supremacies who had fought with him, some of those immortal supremacies vomited on the spot. Therefore it could be said that the people he liked were really unlucky. However, this had nothing to do with Xia Xiaohe. It didn't matter how perverted Paksu was. Anyway, he didn't dare to be perverted to her. As long as Shattering Void was still useful, it could be used. This was also the path of leadership that she had learned from the Immortal King. And to some extent, Shattering Void in the state of inner demons was more useful than usual. Because in normal times he was too difficult to use. Not to mention the little princess of the immortal world, even Xuanxian Wang Xiaoyu himself sometimes couldn't command him. When Paksu went crazy, he didn't even recognize his own family. He was sent into the endless immortal prison by the Immortal King as many as 3 times. If a normal immortal went in once, they wouldn't be able to come out in one piece, but he went in and out 3 times and was still alive and kicking. He did not learn his lesson at all. On the contrary, he who had been struck by the devil in his heart was less crazy, more focused, and easier to communicate with. It was just that after so many years, Paksu rarely had a devil in his heart, because his collection was so rich that few people could arouse his interest. Who is the unlucky one this time? Paksu shook his head and said, I'm sorry, but I can't say. Oh, you're still keeping secrets from me? Are you afraid that I'll snatch it from you? Xia Xiaohe narrowed her eyes and smiled. Paksu nodded his head and said, I'm indeed a little worried. Little he, you have never been afraid of meat and vegetables. You're the princess of the immortal world, so you have endless resources. I don't have your unique conditions, so it's really not easy for me to get a good collection, so don't fight with me. Xia Xiaohe took a deep breath and resisted the urge to beat him up. She said coldly, I have a few things for you to do now. Can you do them? Paksu immediately nodded and said, Of course, I will not shirk away from the little princess's task. Tsk, you're not even willing to share a collection with me and you're talking about risking your life? Xia Xiaohe scoffed at Paksu's pretentious behavior. Moreover, I don't need you to risk your life. Right now, our strength is not so abundant, so it can't be wasted. Paksu was a little puzzled. Not enough power? With me and Her Royal Highness, we should be able to sweep through this world. Sweep? Have you forgotten how Moonbreeze died? Have you forgotten what happened to Kanglin? Have you forgotten that there are still more than 100 Dixian remnants here? Paksu smiled and said, Clay chickens and pottery dogs, a motley crew. Xiaohe, you're the princess of the immortal world, so you should inherit the indomitable spirit of His Majesty. Do you not know how to talk if you don't argue with me? Have you forgotten my means after such a long time? Xia Xiaohe was angry and Paksu immediately shut up. Listen, although 9 regions is a lower realm, it is, after all, the origin of the immortal world. We are not qualified to underestimate this place. What's more, our enemy is not necessarily the people of 9 regions. An alien that comes out of nowhere is a big trouble. I don't want to confront him now, so we have to keep a low profile, do you understand? Of course, Paksu didn't understand, but it didn't prevent him from nodding. I know you want to say that the enemy is in the light while I'm in the dark, but I can tell you that 9 regions has long been operated like an iron bucket. If you keep a low profile, it will be really difficult for them to find you. For example, if you and I hide in Mount Qi, they will never find us. But once you make a move, the power of the whole continent will converge in an instant. Paksu thought for a moment and said, Then what should we do? First, break their iron bucket array and start from the inside. Xia Xiaohe said and then took out a piece of paper. On the paper was a woman who looked 14 or 15 years old. She was delicate and beautiful, but her face did not have the innocence and vitality that a young girl should have. Instead, she was a bit lazy and irritated. From her slightly frowning eyebrows, it was not difficult to see that her temper was obviously not very good. Paksu took a closer look and asked, Who is this person? Feng Ling, the lady boss of Ru Family Inn in Spirit Creek Town. Can you say something I can understand? Oh, you must not be unfamiliar with her other identity. She is the container of the 9-tailed fox. Paksu immediately understood and said, The servant soldier that was put into the lower realm more than 100 years ago? Yes, the 9-tailed fox that was personally captured and put into the lower realm by Senior Immortal Xiaoyao to release the natural disaster. At that time, it was suppressed and sealed shortly after coming to the lower realm. I lurked in 9 regions for 15 years and finally found its container. Next, I want you to find a way to get in touch with this container and then use this to unlock the seal. Paksu took the demon-breaking needle that Xia Xiaohe handed him and was somewhat puzzled. He said, So what if the seal is unlocked? A 9-tailed fox shouldn't be able to set off any storm. Of course, the nine-tailed fox can't set off any storm, but the lady boss of Ru family and can set off stormy waves. You don't need to know so much about the specific situation, just follow my plan. Paksu pondered for a moment and then took the portrait of Feng Ling. He said, okay, leave this matter to me. What about you? Xia Xiaohe smiled and said, I'm going to the Western continent. Western continent? Isn't that the territory of the Temple of Gods? It's not a place we should touch. There's nothing we shouldn't do. Do you think that the Temple of Gods is still shining in the galaxy and can be on an equal footing with the immortal world? That group of rotten people should have died long ago. This time, 9 regions will be flattened, and the next one will be the Western continent. If the Temple of Gods is not sensible, then let them disappear together. Paksu raised his eyebrows. Listening to Xia Xiaohe's words, it seemed that the fallout with the Western gods was a recent thing, which was faster than he expected. Although he had long known that there would be a war between the immortal world and the Temple of Gods, it should be thousands of years later when the value of 9 regions was completely exhausted. It seemed that His Majesty the Immortal King intended to speed up the progress. He had always been slow to keep up with the strategic changes in the immortal world. Although his status was enough to get the first-hand news, he was not interested. But the focus now is on 9 regions. What are you going to do in the Western continent? Xia Xiaohe said with her usual sunny and warm smile, the world is so big I want to see it. Previously, we were in a deadlock with the Temple of Gods, so we never had a chance to go to the Western continent. Now that the opportunity is rare, we should go there. I heard that there is a country called Bretonia which is very beautiful and worth seeing. That's right. Xia Xiaohe patted her forehead and said, I almost forgot one more thing. Bai Zai Shenemo, you two come here. A moment later, the 2 Dixian appeared expressionlessly in the lakeside house. Recently, I'm going to the Western continent to do a big thing. Before I leave, I'll give you an important task. I know that the Wuxia League has a workshop in the Red Sea which has been producing war machines called Zaku. You two find a way to destroy the workshop. Bai Zai opened his eyes incredulously and said, You want the 2 of us to destroy the heavily guarded Red Sea workshop? You don't think your power is enough? Then go and find a new partner. You two should be quite popular among the earthly immortals, right? Impossible, the Dixian have long been controlled by Wang Lu. It's impossible to betray. Xia Xiaohe sneered and said, Impossible to betray? Then what's the matter with the 2 of you? Tell my words to your old friends carefully, I believe there will be people who will be tactful. After that, without waiting for the 2 to argue, Xia Xiaohe's words blocked their retreat. You two, if you want to get on my boat, you have to pay 2 tickets, right? After explaining the task, Xia Xiaohe left Mount Qi and took away all the books and belongings in the lakeside house. It seemed that she would never come back. This made Bai Zai and Xianemo very surprised. Previously, when they sneaked into the Mount Qi school, Xia Xiaohe spent a lot of effort. Not only did she secretly assassinate the original sect leader, but she also brainwashed everyone in the school, so that they would not be surprised by Xia Xiaohe, the new sect leader. Later, she personally transformed the lakeside house to make it more in line with her aesthetic taste. They thought that she worked so hard to make this place a long-term stronghold, but now she left cleanly without any reluctance. For Paksu, all of this was not surprising. Xia Xiaohe had always been unpredictable. What she did with great fanfare was not necessarily what she really wanted to do, but a casual move could become the key to victory. In addition, she was moody and her position was also unpredictable. Even Xia Yu, the immortal king, had a headache for this child. Instead of wasting time trying to figure out her mind, it was better to follow the plan honestly. With such a thought in mind, Senior Immortal Paksu quietly came to the foot of Spirit Sword Mountain in Blue River region. At this time he was still dressed as a scholar. He was an immortal with the great immortal technique, Su. The effect of his illusion was perfect. Even at the foot of Spirit Sword Mountain, no one could see through his real body. Following the map index, Senior Immortal Paksu soon came to the famous Ru family inn. Well, the next thing is to find a way to see the owner of this place. In order to avoid alerting the enemy, he did not use the magical ability of the immortal to lock the position of the other party in advance. However, on the way here, he had already inquired about the lady boss Feng Ling, who had settled here for a long time and would not travel far easily. Just as he thought of this, he suddenly saw 2 burly men flying out of the Ru family inn and rolling all the way along the slope of Spirit Creek town. A girl, who looked 14 or 15 years old, looked at the 2 men who vomited blood and fainted with disgust and said, "Reckless thing, how dare you be picky about the taste of the food here? The people around them had long been accustomed to this scene. Senior Immortal Paksu, on the other hand, was pleasantly surprised. Hi, it really didn't take any effort at all. Hello everyone, it's me again. It's still about the vote canvassing for the Tencent Animation PV competition. There is only one day left in the competition. Please still support Spirit Sword Mountain. QQ. Comside cast a valuable recommendation vote for Spirit Sword Mountain. One QQ account can cast 3 votes a day. Thank you everyone. Chapter 795. Senior Immortal Paksu was very glad that he was in the state of inner demon. Otherwise the trouble would be really big. In the state of inner demon, although his fighting ability would be reduced a lot, his mind would be much clearer, so he would not do stupid things. What stupid things? For example, when he saw the target he would rush to do whatever he wanted, which was a big stupid thing. Xia Xiaohe assigned him a task to find a girl named Feng Ling, and then use the demon-breaking needle to unlock her seal and release the nine-tailed fox. Now Feng Ling had been found not far from him. She was exactly the same as the person in the portrait, especially the valiant and formidable-looking spirit between her eyebrows, which was absolutely not fake. But the next question was the key. How could he use the demon-breaking needle to unlock her seal? The worst choice was to go hard. Although with the strength of Senior Immortal Paksu, he could set off a natural disaster in any place in 9 regions and kill thousands of people. However, this was the foot of Spirit Sword Mountain, one of the 5 extremes of 9 regions. More importantly, according to Xia Xiaohe, his treasured collection was the people from Lingjian School, and the alien that made Xia Xiaohe feel very difficult was also a person from Lingjian School. Thus, in Paksu's view, Spirit Sword Mountain was undoubtedly the most dangerous place in 9 regions. Once he made his move, there would be no good ending. So what should he do? Paksu thought about it and decided to take it one step at a time. He had already seen the person, so the rest was to slowly grind it down. Xia Xiaohe didn't set a time limit for the task, so why should he be in such a hurry? Moreover, he was now clear-headed, so he was not afraid of any changes if he delayed for a long time. Thus, he confidently strode into the inn and shouted with a smile, "Give me one of my signature dishes." Feng Ling, who was inspecting in the lobby, glanced at him and then ignored him. She was no longer the lonely person who ordered, cooked, and paid for everything. As the boss, she didn't need to do anything herself. Even beating up bad customers who deliberately found fault with the taste of the food was out of interest. Otherwise, the Ru family had plenty of hired thugs. Why would she need to personally show off her strength in the lobby? And the scholar who shouted in the lobby didn't seem to be anything special. He was just an ordinary tourist. Spirit Sword Mountain could welcome thousands of such tourists in a day. However, on the other hand, Feng Ling's heart palpitated faintly. It was a throb of fear. Windling trusted her instincts, but she also trusted her judgment. This contradiction made her frown, but she didn't think too much about it. This was the foot of Spirit Sword Mountain. What was there to worry about? Wind Chime spent the next 5 days in this conflicted state of mind. These 5 days passed by uneventfully. The inn was as busy as ever and the guest rooms were as full as ever. Under this situation where the supply could not meet the demand, the Ru family inn's room prices were notoriously high. Thus, the lady boss naturally noticed a certain scholar who stayed in the upper room for 5 days. And the scholar gradually felt that his patience was about to run out. He had stayed here for 5 days, and it could be said that he had been with Winchim day and night. However, even after 5 days he could not find any flaws in Winchim and could not find a chance to attack. Because this lady boss was so homebody that it made people's hair stand on end. She stayed in the inn every day and never took a step out. The purchasing of the resources in the inn was all handed over to her subordinates. She didn't go out to check at all. During this period the lady boss did meet some friends, but they always came to look for her. She never went out. This situation made it impossible to make a move. As long as Winchim didn't leave Spirit Sword Mountain, then once Paksa made his move, it would inevitably cause a great backlash. In fact, he was not afraid of backlash, but he was more afraid of the furious Xia Xiaohe. After thinking about it, Paksa decided not to wait and took the initiative to attack. The method of attack was also very simple. Since Winchim refused to leave Spirit Sword Mountain, then he would find a way to make her leave. Senior Immortal Paksa had the Void Immortal technique, so it was easy for him to deceive someone to go somewhere. Half a day later, Winchim saw an unexpected visitor in her room. When she saw that person, the lady boss, who had always been cool and straightforward, showed an indescribable complex look. "What do you want from me? I don't want to see you." As she spoke, she involuntarily took half a step forward. In the eastern border region 500 miles south of the Red Sea, there was a small town. In a tea shop in the town, Bai Zhe and Xian Mo were facing a pot of coarse tea with heavy expressions. Are we really going to do it? Bai Zhe held the small teacup in his hand and asked softly. Xian Mo was silent and could not give an answer. Xia Xiaohe's argument is indeed reasonable. The power of the immortal world is too strong, which is not something that the 9 regions can match. Instead of fighting to the death, it's better to give our own people a little living space. Bai Zhe said softly, but such a simple truth, if we understand it, don't other people understand it? What? Xian Mo interrupted somewhat irritably, well, what's the use of saying that now? I don't care what you like to deny, but do you and I have a way back? No. Bai Zhe smiled gently. Xian Mo was suddenly stunned and said, Bai Zhe, do you want to? Bai Zhe said, think about it carefully. If we want to go back, it's now. First of all, Xia Xiaohe is far away in the western continent and we are free. Although we have surrendered to Xia Xiaohe, we have not really done anything to hurt the 9 regions. On the contrary, by following her, we have learned a lot of important information such as Senior Immortal Paksu, Immortal King Xiaoyu, and that they are about to make a move against Feng Ling and Aya, which is obviously aimed at Wang Lu. The value of this information is enough to make up for the detours we have taken before. Moreover, from another perspective, if our surrender is just a disguise, a false appearance to deceive information, then we won't even have a stain on us. Bai Zhe said it lightly, even with some confidence, but Xian Mo's hand was slightly trembling. Bai Zhe, you should know that Xia Xiaohe must have heard those words just now. So what? Can she come back in time? And do you think that even if we don't say anything and behave meekly and obediently, she will trust us? Bai Zhe shook his head with a chuckle and said, to judge whether a person is trustworthy or not, it depends on what he does, not what he says. If we really instigate other companions to rebel and destroy the Red Sea underwater workshop, then there will be no place for us in 9 regions, and it would be impossible for us not to surrender. At that time, even if we have more ideas and arguments, she won't mind. And now, before it's done, no matter what we say, she won't trust us. So, if you want to say it, just say it. Why care so much? The key is, what are you going to do? Hearing Bai Zhe's words, Xian Mo's heart calmed down a little, and the balance of the 2 sides began to tilt towards one side. However, then Bai Zhe said something else, which made Xian Mo's heart restless again. I want to stay. What did you say? Bai Zhe repeated indifferently, I want to stay on Xia Xiaohe's side. Xian Mo shook his head in disbelief and said, what? You can understand it as, a good bird chooses a tree to nest in. After all, Xia Xiaohe is the stronger side. I don't believe it. This was not the Bai Zhe she knew. Although the Bai Zhe in her impression was stupid and would do wrong things, he would never break his back. Xia Xiaohe and the fallen immortals were indeed powerful, but under the leadership of Sun Buping 16,000 years ago, they had a fierce fight with the upper realm with the awareness of certain death, and even experienced a resurrection. They were really not afraid of dying again. Previously, they submitted to Xia Xiaohe because her attitude towards 9 regions was still friendly, and they hoped that they could open a door for her. However, in the past 5 years they had gradually given up the plan to change Xia Xiaohe. That woman would not be shaken by anyone, and her friendliness towards 9 regions had gradually been stripped away, revealing a colder nature. Both Bai Zhe and Xian Mo were disappointed with her. Therefore, when Bai Zhe proposed to go back, Xian Mo didn't think much of it. What was surprising was that even though he proposed to go back, he still wanted to go down the dark road. What? Because I can see that you don't want to stage. Bai Zhe said, of the 2 of us, one is enough to go back. You know what I know, so it doesn't make sense for one more person to go back. Moreover, as I said earlier, Xia Xiaohe is the stronger side. The power of the immortal world is too strong. No matter how hard we try, we can't rule out the possibility of total annihilation. At that time, we need someone to continue the fire for us. Even if it's to be condemned by thousands of people and go down in history. Don't look at me like that. Didn't I play the same role when I followed the boss? I know you're all scolding me, but this is my job. Seeing Bai Zhe like this, Xian Mo suddenly felt his eyes turn sour. That's right. At that time, Bai Zhe did play the role of being condemned by thousands of people, and he did have no regrets. Xian Mo really regretted it. He regretted that he couldn't see the other side of Bai Zhe. Why did he always hate him for no reason? Why did he play pranks on him when people weren't paying attention? Why did he secretly feel proud when he was angry? Bai Zhe smiled and said, well, don't look like you're going to die. I believe that we will meet again one day, and I hope to see your smiling face at that time. With that, his smile suddenly disappeared. Well, while Xia Xiaohe is in the western continent, let's hurry up. I will go to the Red Sea and make a scene. And you don't forget your mission. With that, Bai Zhe turned into a rainbow light and flew toward the Red Sea in the north. Xian Imo watched him leave and was silent for a long time. She picked up the teacup, rinsed her mouth with the bitter and cold coarse tea and then stood up. The moment she stood up, she suddenly felt the coldness penetrating her bones. At the door of the tea shop, Xia Xiaohe was looking at her with interest. Why don't you go? Don't you know the way? Where do you want to go? I'll take you there. During the PV competition, I really appreciate everyone's active voting. The update will come soon. Chapter 796. In the tea house, Xia Xiaohe sits opposite to Xian Imo, picks up the teapot and drinks up the herbal tea, and then wipes her mouth with her sleeve. Xian Imo sits down weakly. Why are you here? If I'm not here, how can I watch the good show just now? Xia Xiaohe smiles. It's really wonderful. I've been with him for 5 years, but I didn't know he was so eloquent. You're right. If you want to go back, it's now. Xian Imo, do you want to go back? You haven't been back for a few years. Do you need me to show you the way? Xian Imo closed her eyes and forced herself not to let the tears flow out. She is not afraid of her fate, but she feels pity. It's a pity that Bai Zhe's good calculations all failed. It's a pity that he would rather sacrifice himself than achieve his goal. It's a pity that she didn't say anything to him when he left. But now there's no chance. All hopes turned to dust. Xian Imo felt as if she had once again experienced the despair she felt after losing the great battle 16,000 years ago. Kill me? Why? Xia Xiaohe asks. What's in it for me to kill you? If I really want to kill you, I'll do it just now. You and Bai Zhe can't escape. I don't kill you because I think what Bai Zhe said just now is very right. The functions of you two are highly overlapping. No matter what you do, it's enough to keep one of you alive. Bai Zhe chooses to stay so you can go. Xian Imo is a little surprised. You want to let me go? Yes. Xia Xiaohe nods with a smile. I've told you that I'm a kind-hearted immortal. You should believe me. Of course, Xian Imo doesn't believe in the so-called kind-hearted immortal. When facing Xia Xiaohe, she will first try to figure out her behavior with the greatest malice. Xia Xiaohe lets her go because she wants to play a game of cat and mouse? Give her hope and then make her desperate? Stop her on the way to Lingjian school? No, with Xia Xiaohe's temperament, she wouldn't do something so senseless. What she wanted to do would definitely, still doubting me. Sai, you're really bored. What do I want to do? You won't be able to guess it even if you have 10,000 years. Why do you have to waste your time guessing? Do what you have to do. I won't play with you anymore. If we don't leave now, I'm afraid that little Bai Zhe will be beaten to death. Xian Imo was shocked. What did you say? However, Xia Xiaohe had already disappeared without a trace. Xian Imo hesitated for a long time in the tea shop before deciding to leave. As a Dixian, she flew extremely fast. Not long after, she left the eastern border province and entered the territory of the central province. She wanted to find Supreme Hichu, the sect leader of Shengjing sect, and then tell him everything she knew. As Xia Xiaohe said, she couldn't figure out the other party's mind. The information between the two sides was completely asymmetrical, so she just had to do what she had to do. In fact, Xian Imo wanted to go to the Blue River region to find Wang Lu, but she thought that Senior Immortal Paxu should also be in the Blue River region at this time, so it was better not to walk into the trap. Shengjing sect had the 9 regions map, which was the center of 9 regions. Finding Supreme Hichu was tantamount to finding everyone, whether it was the several Supremes of the Wanxian League or the former Dixian partners. After that, she could tell them all the information that she had collected in the past 5 years, and then, thinking of this, Xian Imo suddenly stopped, because she found a serious loophole in her plan. Even if she found Supreme Hichu, would the other party believe what she said? She disappeared with Xia Xiaohe 5 years ago, and then was listed on the wanted list of the Wanxian League. In other words, she was now a traitor of 9 regions. What reason did people have to believe her information? Moreover, was her information really reliable? Previously, she thought that Xia Xiaohe was in the western continent, but she clearly never left 9 regions. As for the other information that she had come into contact with in the past 5 years, it was very likely that Xia Xiaohe was deliberately setting up a maze. With her scheming means, this was very likely. If she believed her information and was later caught in one fell swoop, Xian Imo would not be able to redeem herself even if she died 10,000 times. Thinking of this, Xian Imo once again fell into indecision. Where was the way ahead? There were countless forks in front of her, each of which led to endless darkness. And she really lacked the decisiveness to stride forward regardless of anything. In such confusion, Xian Mo wandered around the edge of the central region for 5 days like a walking corpse. Until by chance she heard such a dialogue in a small town where immortal cultivators gathered. "Hey, have you heard that the trader who attacked the Red Sea underwater workshop a few days ago is about to be beheaded in public? Tieske, his dog eyes are really blind. He ran alone to the most important place in the Wanxian League. Does he think he is the king of the immortal world? It is said that he is a good-for-nothing trader of Dixian. Humph, I have already said that the so-called Dixian are unreliable. Who knows how many lackeys of the fallen immortals are among the losers more than 10,000 years ago? Before there was Black and now there is Baize. I think that Tetragon is not a good thing." Hearing this, Xian Mo was shocked. Baize was caught by the people of the Wanxian League and was about to be beheaded in public? "Baize, what the hell are you doing? Aren't you going to stay in Xia Xiaohe's camp to preserve the fire for us? How could you die so easily? Attacking the Red Sea underwater workshop single-handedly, are you going to die?" Thinking of this, Xia Xiaohe's smiling face suddenly appeared in Xian Mo's mind. Yes, it was that woman. It was because of her that Baize could not act according to the original plan. If he rashly attacked the Red Sea underwater workshop, perhaps he was really looking for his own death. Because if he fell into Xia Xiaohe's hands, his fate would only be worse. Xia Xiaohe would let Xian Mo go, but she probably would not let Baize go. Xian Mo quickly figured out the crux of the matter, but her mood became even heavier. Baize, the man who foolishly dedicated all his life, was going to die like this? With endless regret and humiliation, he died in the hands of his own people? Brother Li, this time, the Wanxian League arranged to execute the traitor on the Behead Immortal platform. Are you going to go and see it? Of course, I want to see the traitor's soul fly away and disappear with my own eyes. Hey, I think so too. In any case, I have nothing to do, so it's also fun to see the death of the great Dixian. In the grand competition there was a match where Dixian died, and I happened to not be able to see it live. This time I can't miss it, ha. The dialogue not far away made Xian Mo clench her teeth. Otherwise she was afraid that she would not be able to control herself. You lowly bastards, what qualifications do you have to humiliate Baize? What qualifications do you have to blaspheme his nobility? You lowly bastards who look at the sky from the bottom of a well, you are not even qualified to look up at Baize's back. And Baize, do you really want to sacrifice yourself for these bastards? Xia Xiaohe said that there were only a few people in 9 regions who deserved to survive. Now that she thought about it, she was right. Therefore, Baize, I can't watch you die like this. Although I'm sorry, I can't follow the original plan. After thinking about this, Xian Mo stood up and stepped forward. This time she had identified her direction. At the same time, in a deep cave in the distant cloud region, the girl finally ended her long coma and opened her eyes. This is... After a moment of dizziness and confusion, she realized that this was not a place she was familiar with. Thus, the chaos in her mind was driven away by her vigilance. She jumped up like a beast, leaned her back against the rock and put on a ferocious posture. At this time, a man's voice sounded in the dark cave. Don't be so nervous, sit down and talk slowly. The girl asked coldly, Who are you? Senior Immortal Paksu. Hearing this name, the girl could not help but take a breath of cold air. Of course she knew who Paksu was. At the foot of Spirit Sword Mountain, she ran one of the best inns in the industry, so her intelligence network was very wide. The news that Senior Immortal Paksu broke through the non-phase sword defense and entered 9 regions was only circulated in the Heavenly Sage Hall, but she already knew it very well. Therefore she quickly guessed why she was here. Thinking of this, Feng Ling could not help but hate herself for being careless. Didn't she decide to never see him again? Why didn't she harden her heart to expel him immediately when he appeared in front of her? If her reaction was a bit faster and more decisive at that time, even if the other party was Senior Immortal Paksu, it would be difficult for him to trick her out of the Ru family inn and drag her all the way here. She only had herself to blame, she really had herself to blame. What do you want? In the darkness, Senior Immortal Paksu said, Don't be afraid, I don't want to do anything bad to you. It's really ridiculous for a rat who hides his head but shows his tail to say such a thing. You're right. As soon as his voice fell, the fire in the cave lit up and reflected the face of Senior Immortal Paksu. To Feng Ling's surprise, it was not a sinister, cunning, ferocious and terrifying face. Senior Immortal Paksu looked gentle, like a scholar in the academy. Is it strange? I have a demon in my heart now, and the symptoms are getting worse and worse, so I don't look the same as usual. You don't have to mind. Feng Ling frowned and said, "What do you want?" Paxa said, "I'm just following orders. Someone wants me to poke you with this thing and unlock the seal in your body." Humph. Feng Ling snorted coldly, and the next moment she rushed from the edge of the cave. Her speed was extremely fast, completely beyond the scope of martial arts in the mortal world. At close range, even if the other party was a cultivator, he might be caught off guard. Her pair of steel-like fists could smash all immortal barriers. Now her breaking attribute was not only effective in Blue River region, but even in the distant Southern Heaven region she could break all kinds of laws with one punch. The premise was that this punch could hit the target. Senior Immortal Paxu simply took a step back, which made Feng Ling's punch return in vain. Then, when she was about to rush forward and turn around, he suddenly approached her. He raised his hand and grabbed Feng Ling's arm, forcing her to bend down and unable to move. As an immortal, Paxu's martial arts cultivation was superior to Feng Ling's. "Alas, don't be so impatient. I think we should have a good talk." Feng Ling struggled hard, but found that her joints were locked and she could not break free at all. "Bah. If you want to kill me or cut me, there's nothing to talk about. I'm really thinking about you. Breaking the seal is a good thing for you. You don't need to care." Senior Immortal Paxa smiled and said, "I know you're a kind person. As the seal container of the nine-tailed fox, although you have suffered all kinds of misfortune in your life, you feel that this is, after all, a sacrifice for all living beings in 9 regions and you are willing to do it. Yes, I'm so noble. If you have the ability, just kill me. But have you ever thought about it, you? Are you really just a simple container? First, I'll return one more chapter. I'll rush it as soon as possible." Chapter 797. In the cave, the words of Senior Immortal Paxu made Feng Ling quiet down in an instant. Because this question was really her weakness. Had she ever thought that she was not a simple container? Of course she had thought about it, but she never thought about it deeply. Because the answer that vaguely appeared in her intuition from time to time was chilling. Feng Ling was a girl with keen intuition. She trusted her intuition but never blindly used it. She knew what she should know and what she shouldn't know. It was rare for her to be confused. For example, for so many years the old man on the mountain always played the role of a father with poor acting skills, and then clumsily and rudely gave her the title of illegitimate daughter, trying to render a slightly funny father-daughter relationship. But she had long known that she was not Feng Yin's daughter, and it was not a secret that the old man practiced virgin power, so how could he have a daughter? Of course, many people also knew that the illegitimate daughter was just a disguise, an excuse. Feng Yin's generosity and tolerance to her was because more than 100 years ago, when the nine-tailed fox ravaged the Lingjian school, Feng Yin sacrificed an innocent girl and sealed the nine-tailed fox in her body. Then, in order to make up for it, he regarded her as his own daughter. However, Feng Ling vaguely felt that this explanation was also just a disguise. Feng Yin worked hard to play the role of a father and was treated coldly by her for decades in order to hide a more important truth. She didn't want to know the truth because her current life was good enough for her. Although many people thought it was boring to live in Spirit Creek Town, she really liked it. He liked this mountain, liked this town, and liked this Rujian, no matter when it was empty or when it was full of guests. Similarly, she liked the white-bearded old man's flattering closeness. She liked that when the two of them got along she frowned at him, curled her lips at him, spoke ill of him, and then involuntarily smiled when she turned around. Of course there was also the guy named Wang Lu. Since she met him, things had always been wonderful. She liked this kind of life very much, so even if she deceived herself, she hoped that life could continue along the current trajectory. But, no matter how beautiful the dream was, it would come to an end. You are not a container, you are the nine-tailed fox. What Feng Yin sealed was not the nine-tailed celestial fox's powers, but the nine-tailed celestial fox's memories. He turned you into an ordinary person and led you to live a mediocre life in the inn. You even forgot the enmity of being suppressed and sealed, acknowledging the thief as your father. Sigh, just thinking about it makes my heart ache. Feng Ling said angrily, I'm willing to recognize him, what does that have to do with you? Whether he's a thief or a robber, even if he's a dog, he's still my father. It's none of your business. Paxa smiled and said, of course this is the case for you now. Feng Yin has induced you for decades, so this result is not surprising. But, are you willing to hear the answer from the bottom of your heart? I'm not interested in what others have to say. Paxa said, the lifespan of the nine-tailed celestial fox is very long. Although you are not fully mature, you have actually spent nearly 1,000 years. Your life as Winchim is only a very, very small part of it, so your stubbornness right now is really laughable to me. Laugh if you want, but I will never give in to you. Is that so? Then give it a try. After Paksu finished speaking, the demon-breaking needle pierced into the back of Winchim's neck. The next moment, a frightening demonic wind whistled. The gravel in the cave flew and the wind whistled sharply. In the middle of the gale, Winchim's body trembled violently involuntarily and uttered a long and painful whine. Paksu loosened his hand and took a few steps back with the wind. He watched Winchim curled up on the ground, unable to move because of the severe pain. After a long time, the demonic wind stopped, and Winchim's trembling finally stopped. Her whole body seemed to have been immersed in water. Raising her head, the girl's clear eyes had changed color, and a touch of seductive red soaked her pupils. When she saw Paksu, the girl smiled slightly and said, "Thank you, Senior Immortal, for finally finding my precious thing. After dreaming for decades, I finally woke up." Senior Immortal, Paksu said, "Now that you're awake, do you know what you should do?" "Of course, I must repay the decades of life that the Lingjin school has given me." "Well, you're the nine-tailed fox, so you should use your brain and magical abilities more. You don't have to rush in recklessly." The fox said with a smile, "Of course, I was reckless and almost ruined the big thing before, but now I won't repeat the same mistake. In fact, the experience of these decades is not necessarily a bad thing. If I didn't get along with them for decades, it would be quite difficult for me to get close to them. Well, play the role of Winchim well. You can do a lot of things before you're exposed. Don't let us down this time." "Understood. So, if Senior Immortal has no other instructions, I'll go first." Paksu nodded and said, "You're more sober than expected. Just waking up from a big dream. Very well, you can go." When the fox was about to leave, Paksu suddenly asked a question. "How much do you think a boiled radish can be sold for?" The fox was startled and said, "Boiled radish? A few coins should be enough." Go ahead." At the same time, over a secluded swamp in Blue River region, a bloody battle was taking place. The people in the passage wanted to go out, but the people outside the passage risked their lives to stop them. For 5 days and 5 nights, the people in the passage advanced wave after wave, but not even a mosquito could be let out. "Bastards, get out of here." No one knew how many times it was, but the gatekeeper swept his sword, and a moon-like sword wave blasted into the passage, setting off stormy waves. No one knew how many great demons were swept away by the sword wave and wailed miserably. However, after the sword wave, the injured demons retreated, and a new batch of demons took their place. The army of servants in the passage seemed to be as tough as a reef under a big wave. After a moment of silence, a new wave of impact began. "It's really endless." The gatekeeper glanced coldly at the inside of the passage. His eyes became sharper, but his hand holding the sword began to tremble. For 5 days and 5 nights, he single-handedly prevented the fallen immortals from descending to the lower realm. Such a feat could not be described with the word miracle. It could even be called a miracle. Of course, a miracle was not without a price. The undefeatable non-phase sword defense could not be eternal. However, it could be infinitely close to eternity because she was not alone. The 9 regions would not let her face this continent-wide crisis alone. At this time, the union of 10,000 immortals and the ancient Earth immortals were working in a tense and orderly manner. This 15-year-old machine was running with amazing efficiency. Wang Wu was the tip of the sword, the sharpest and unstoppable sword tip, and the entire 9 regions was the thick and heavy sword body. When Wang Wu fought, it provided her with the necessary support. With Supreme Hichu's 9 regions map as the core, more than 100 of the most elite and powerful cultivators of 9 regions were connected together. They were scattered all over 9 regions, occupying different blessed lands, and then absorbed the surrounding spiritual energy with their own cultivation base, which was then gathered through an array and delivered to the front line of the war. Such a massive supply of spiritual energy was enough to make a cultivator omnipotent. Although Wang Wu was alone with a sword, it was no less than a magnificent army. Although her hand trembled, the sword chi she wielded was still powerful. After a round of sword wave, the servant soldiers of the fallen immortals were still in a state of chaos. And her non-phase sword defense was still unbreakable. Whenever she felt that her strength was a little exhausted, there would be a warm current injected into her body to repair her fatigue. This unique battle array was the final product that was modified and perfected by countless people after being proposed by Wang Lu. In the face of the immortals, the number of people could not create an advantage. The Dixian had fully proved this point in the past. Under the crushing of the stage, it was easy to defeat the fallen immortals one by one, and more people would be a drag instead. Therefore Wang Lu simply did the opposite and chose one person to fight the fallen immortals alone. The rest of them only needed to support and did not need to participate in the battle. If they didn't participate in the battle, there would be no flaws. And Wang Wu's non-phase method had always been flawless. Get lost. Once again Wang Wu fiercely shook the non-phase sword defense, which shook the bones and blood of the servant soldiers. However, after this round of shock she involuntarily shook her body. Even though there was a warm current injected into her body, she could not immediately find her balance. In the passage, surrounded by a group of demons, the woman who was as light as a feather smiled and pointed at the direction where Wang Wu fell. Thus, several faintly discernible shadows pounced on her. This time, they still failed to break through Wang Wu's defensive circle and were blocked by the shock force of the non-phase sword defense. However, before their momentum dissipated, these shadows approached less than 10 feet in front of Wang Wu. The shadow attack failed, but the woman's smile remained unchanged. She waved her hand and began to reorganize the servant army, as if what happened just now was just a trivial matter. This made Wang Wu even more unhappy. Tisk, do you think that I don't have enough endurance and that my defeat is only a matter of time? Don't worry, little sister, it was just foreplay just now. Next, I promise to make you climax. With that, Wang Wu took the initiative to step forward and stepped into the passage. The woman was slightly surprised by this step. Then she nodded with a smile and the gem on her forehead shone. I am Yin Luo and I'm very happy to fight with you. At the same time, in Xingjing sect in the central region, Supreme Hichu's body swayed, and a large amount of immortal spirit dispersed. Wang Wu's step seemed to be understated, but it affected the whole 9 regions map, and the entire 9 regions map received a great impact. Thus, at the same time, countless people in 9 regions secretly scolded her for looking for trouble. It was not enough to guard the door outside the passage, but she also took the initiative to provoke. Did she want to die faster? Unfortunately, the person in the front line of Blue River region was Wang Wu, and it was Wang Wu who made all the decisions. Other people could do nothing but silently provide the surrounding spiritual energy. Fifth junior sister is not an impulsive and reckless person. Her step is actually very particular. Unfortunately, there are not many people in 9 regions who can see it. On the stellar peak of Spirit Sword Mountain, the sect leader sat alone in the bamboo room as still as a rock, as if he was connected with the whole Spirit Sword Mountain. Wang Wu's step just now shocked many people, but it did not shake him, because he had expected that Wang Wu would take that step. The core of the 9 regions map seemed to be Hichu, but it was actually him. As long as Feng Yin could hold on, this great array could be maintained for a long time, and Wang Wu could also hold on for a long time, and it was even possible to fight a beautiful counterattack. Just as Feng Yin was about to further expand the scope of absorption and send more surrounding spiritual energy to Wang Wu, someone suddenly came to report. Feng Ling asked to see him. Chapter 798. Feng Ling asked to see him? Feng Yin Taoist master was quite surprised. What was she doing here at this time? But soon joy welled up in his heart. Who cares what she came here for? This was the first time in many years that little Ling Er took the initiative to visit him. Even if she accidentally ate the poisonous mushroom and had hallucinations, it didn't matter. Since she came, she couldn't leave. No, as long as she came, it was better than anything else. Moreover, what if it was his persistent dedication over the years that had influenced little Ling Er? What if little Ling Er really recognized him as her father and decided to be a filial daughter? This made him more ecstatic than Feng Yin's breakthrough in peak deity stage. However, the emotion that followed closely after was hesitation. At this moment he shouldn't be distracted, no matter how emotional or logical it was. Wang Wu's defensive battle in the crack in the sky was related to the life and death of the 9 regions, so there was no room for mistakes. Many people simply chose to go into seclusion. As for him occupying the stellar peak alone, he actually had the faint intention of not seeing outsiders. At this time he should be more focused. However, in the current situation, it seemed that there was no need to be so urgent. As the shadow core of the great array, Feng Yin bore a heavy responsibility, but the pressure was lighter than others. Because he knew his junior sister better than anyone else, so his work efficiency was more than a notch higher. When others had to concentrate, he could spare some energy to think about other things. So, should he spend some energy to entertain his daughter? This question did not make Feng Yin hesitate for a long time. Of course he had to entertain her. Not long after the decision was made, Feng Yin saw the figure of Feng Ling. As always, the little girl pouted her mouth and didn't look very happy. However, seeing her at the stellar peak made Feng Yin happier than anything else. Hee hee, little Ling Er, you're here? Humph, what are you giggling about? You look like an idiot. Hee hee, what hee hee? If you laugh like that again, I'm leaving. Don't go, I won't laugh anymore. Feng Yin quickly closed his mouth, but his eyes that curved into a crescent moon couldn't be changed. At the same time, on the beheading immortal platform in the central region, a much-anticipated ceremony was about to begin. The execution ceremony of Dixian. The immortal executioner's platform was a squarish mountain. The peak of the mountain was level, and Bai Zhe, dressed in blood-red clothes, was tied to a thorny pillar by the immortal binding rope. All around him were bare mountain rocks, and his blood flowed through the cracks of the rocks. Countless cracks flowed in all directions like countless rivers, and it dyed the immortal executioner's platform like an overflowing wine glass. There was a sea of people at the foot of the mountain. The number of onlookers who had heard the news had already exceeded 10,000, and the scene was so crowded that not even a drop of water could trickle through. Flying was prohibited near the immortal beheading platform, so the cultivators stuck close to the ground. If they were too close, they wouldn't be able to see what was happening on the platform. However, the blood that flowed along the immortal beheading platform had already aroused their enthusiasm. Regarding this earth immortal who was tied to the thorny pillar, people's discussion was unprecedentedly enthusiastic. Most of them, of course, cursed him for his vicious attempt to sneak attack the Red Sea underwater workshop. Then, some of the more senior cultivators would share with everyone the glorious deeds of Bai Zhe during the grand competition 15 years ago. This guy is not a good thing from the beginning. If it weren't for him, it's likely that we wouldn't have to fight against the Dixian at all, which would have added a lot of losses and even killed a lot of our brothers. Hey, I heard that it was done by a man named Black. They're all the same, not a good thing. In addition, some people questioned why he would commit suicide to sneak attack the Red Sea underwater workshop. It was the most important place in 9 regions today. It was designed and built according to the standard that it could withstand the attack of the fallen immortals. He was just a mere Dixian, not the strongest among the Dixians, so why would he go to the Red Sea underwater workshop to court death? Was there any secret in it? However, the speculation about this would soon be overturned. This Bai Zhe is simply an idiot. During the grand competition, he was already played by Taoist master Nan Fei's. It is said that at that time his strength had not yet reached the Deshang stage. Wang Lu, who was only at the peak of King Pill, also fought against him and seemed to have won. Can be seen how weak this guy is. Because Bai Zhe was stupid enough, no matter what stupid thing he did, there seemed to be a reasonable explanation. In the midst of people's discussion, time went by, and soon it was time for the execution. The cultivators of Xingjing sect, who were in charge of the execution, stood on the 4 hills around the beheading immortal platform and jointly cast spells. In a moment, a dark cloud covered the sun. Electric snakes scuttled in the dark cloud, and there came the sound of rolling thunder. The so-called beheading immortal platform was not to use an immortal sword or a treasured knife to behead an immortal, but to borrow the power of the heavenly thunder and the divine tribulation to behead a person. When the tribulation thunder fell, the body of the person on the thorny pillar naturally collapsed and the soul turned into ashes, which was cleaner and more thorough than any immortal treasure. Bai Zhe looked up at the approaching tribulation thunder, but his heart was actually at peace. What should be done has been done. Although the result was not ideal, he had no regrets. From a very early time he had been accustomed to setbacks. In fact, objectively speaking, Bai Zhe was not stupid. If he was really stupid, how could he cultivate to the Mahayana stage and join Sun Buping's team? However, Bai Zhe's life was indeed full of frustrations, as if there was really a mysterious will between heaven and earth that prevented him from doing something. Therefore, he simply cultivated the negation immortal technique, which could be regarded as a different path. After embarking on this path, he was accustomed to failure. Because the object of his negation was Sun Buping, out of 100 of his negation opinions, not even one could be adopted. Most of the time, his hard advice was like nonsense, and even provoked the resentment of others. However, Bai Zhe still persisted. It was very fulfilling but also very hard. Fortunately, the hard road finally came to an end. He reluctantly lowered his head and saw the flowing river of blood and the crowd under the beheading immortal platform. Although he heard the sound of cursing, Bai Zhe's heart was as calm as the lake. Next, it's up to you. Xia Xiaohe was a terrifying opponent. By playing hard to get and pretending to go to the Western continent, the situation between Bai Zai and Xianemo completely collapsed. When Bai Zai learned that Xia Xiaohe was still in 9 regions, he knew that his plan to disperse the risk had failed, so he resolutely attacked the Red Sea underwater workshop in order to die. But strangely, he did not die on the spot, as if there was some mysterious force that protected him at the critical moment, allowing him to be captured alive and then sent to the beheading immortal platform to be beheaded in public. Bai Zai guessed that the person who caused mischief should be Xia Xiaohe, but he could not guess the other party's purpose. Just to increase the amount of torture he had to endure? This was making a big fuss over a minor issue. However, Xia Xiaohe was mysterious and unpredictable, so there was no need to guess her motive. What's the use of thinking so much for a dying person? In 9 regions there was Wang Lu who had so many ideas, so let him compete with Xia Xiaohe. Thinking of this, he heard the thunder above his head getting louder and louder, and the distance of the heavenly tribulation was getting closer and closer. Bai Zai closed his eyes and quietly waited for the arrival of the trial. However, before the trial came, he heard a familiar voice. Bai Zai, I'm here. The next moment, Bai Zai woke up and incredulously looked at the woman who appeared in front of him. You. Why are you here? I'm here to save you. Xianmo's expression was unwavering. Are you kidding me? Are you out of your mind? Bai Zai angrily said, did I say anything to you before in vain? Let's go or else it'll be too late. At the same time, countless people on and off the beheading immortal platform stared at the woman who suddenly appeared. Who was she? Enthusiastic audience? However, when the heavenly tribulation was about to come, she flew so high and so close. Did she want to die together? The tribulation thunder summoned by Xingjing sect cultivators didn't recognize people. However, soon, people saw an ominous sign from the sudden change in the faces of several Xingjing sect cultivators. This uninvited guest probably didn't come with good intentions. There was going to be a big change in this beheading immortal ceremony. In front of the thorn pillar, Xianemo smiled and said, I regret it. You, Xianemo said, I don't want to stand on Xia Xiaohe's side, nor do I want to stand on the side of 9 regions. I just want to stand on your side. Are you crazy? Xianemo opened her mouth to say a few words, but her voice was covered by the thunder above her head. Thus she looked up and said, separate. The next moment, the thick thunderclouds suddenly opened. A crack from south to north tore open the clouds, and then swept to both sides. In the blink of an eye, the thunderclouds were swallowed up. Xianemo. Bai Zai's eyes almost popped out of their sockets as he roared loudly. He was not surprised that Xianemo could tear apart the heavenly tribulation, but he was shocked by the purpose of Xianemo to do so. This was the beheading immortal platform of the central region, and Xingjing sect was not far away. Making a scene here was tantamount to seeking one's own death, which would not be better than him breaking into the Red Sea underwater workshop. Xianmo's step was tantamount to letting everything before go down the drain. The two of them would only die worthlessly. So what? Xianmo gently smiled. Actually, I've long wanted to say that the future of this continent will be cared about by the people of this continent, so why do you and I need to risk our lives like this? Didn't you hear what the people below just said? Bai Zai said in a muffled voice, why bother with those ignorant people? Since there's no need to care about these ignorant people, just let them die. I know you're eager to refute me again. You always like to refute others, but this time I won't give you the chance to speak. With that, Xianemo stuck a golden talisman paper on Bai Zai's mouth. Then she waved her hand to cut off the thorn pillar, tore the binding immortal rope, picked up Bai Zai in her hand, and then her figure flashed away. During the whole process, among the nearly 10,000 cultivators around the beheading immortal platform, no one could react and stop her. Nice escape. Unfortunately, they're already dead. Not far from the beheading immortal platform, Xia Xiaohe watched Xianemo go away, shook her head with a smile, and then turned her head to ask, how many people do you think the Wuxia League will send to kill them? And if Xianemo resists, how many people will he kill? Then, how much impact will it have on the 9 regions map after killing these people? Next to Xia Xiaohe, a man in a red and white robe replied, it doesn't matter how many people die, but the chaos caused by this matter is important. Bai Zai and Xianemo have a high prestige in the Dixian camp. Being chased and killed like this will chill the hearts of many people. Tisk, it's simply absurd to publicly execute Bai Zai on the beheading immortal platform. If it weren't for the fact that so many capable people have been transferred to the 9 regions map, leaving behind a group of incompetent people to temporarily replace them, such a decision would not have been made. Xia Xiaohe said softly with a sincere and concerned look, Oh, then what should we do now? You see, although you know it in your heart with me here, you have no way to clean up the situation. Wang Lu smiled and said, so what? As long as you're killed, this loss is nothing at all. Thank you for your support. The PV competition has been settled. Let's wait for the animation to come out. Chapter 799. You want to kill me? What? Xia Xiaohe giggled. I think I'm very generous and benevolent. Not only did I leave a glimmer of hope for the people of 9 regions, not only do I give you 9 regions people a chance to live, but even the 2 traitors Bai Zhe and Shanimo, I also gave them their last good time. Where can you find such a good person? If you kill me, there will only be a group of cold-blooded and inhumane guys left in the immortal world. Wang Lu said, that's even better. No one will try to solve the problem by surrendering. What's wrong with surrendering? A wise man submits to circumstances. Xia Xiaohe asked, although it sounds very heroic and tragic to resist to the last soldier, it's essentially a kind of willfulness. Creatures should take survival and reproduction as their first priority, not die in vain for the sake of nothingness. What's the point of your stubborn resistance except for self-satisfaction? For you, it doesn't matter if everything in 9 regions vanishes for your own selfish desire? What's the difference in the result of surrendering to you? Wang Lu sneered and said, hundreds of millions of creatures in 9 regions will be wiped out, and the few survivors will become livestock. What's the difference between this shameful result and extinction? Moreover, who can guarantee that after surrendering to you, you will keep your promise and provide shelter for the survivors? Xia Xiaohe blinked and said, if you're worried about my credibility, then there's really no need. I'm the daughter of Xia Yu, a unique existence in all the worlds. I won't lie. Won't lie? Wang Lu curled his lips in the direction of Bai Zhe and Shenmo's departure and said, there are 2 people over there who have been deceived by you. They brought it upon themselves, you can't blame me. Xia Xiaohe shrugged and said, if they honestly followed my instructions, how could they be like this now? In the final analysis they betrayed me first. If you can be obedient after surrendering, I won't kill you. I have a good impression of the civilization on this continent. There's no proof, show some sincerity. Xia Xiaohe blinked in confusion. What kind of sincerity do you want? Wang Lu said, let me *CKU. What did you say? The air between the 2 of them cooled down at an alarming rate, and the bright and beautiful mountaintop was instantly covered in frost. Wang Lu turned a blind eye to it and continued, I said that as long as you let me *CKU once, I'll believe you. There's an old saying in JoJo, if I *CKU once, we'll be friends for life. Come, since you are so generous and kind, come and be my friend for life. As he spoke, he saw that Xia Xiaohe's anger was gathering at an alarming speed. Wang Lu smiled provocatively. Or is it that your long speech just now was just bullshit? You talk so much, but when it comes to the essence you start to make excuses. Or could it be that you, the little princess of the immortal world, have never tasted meat after living for tens of thousands of years? Still a fledgling? It's okay, I'll be gentle. Wang Lu, you're really a reckless guy. Xia Xiaohe's face was cold, and the light smile just now had completely disappeared. I thought I could have some common language with you, but it seems that I overestimated you, a person from another world. It's really the misfortune of JoJo to let a person like you become the number 1 in JoJo. Today I will kill you first and then subdue JoJo. Haha, come on. However, just when Wang Lu was ready to fight with Xia Xiaohe, he saw her body sway, cut through the space, opened a mysterious passage and disappeared in a flash. I won't fight with a barbarian like you who has no sense of beauty. If you want to kill me, then come and chase me. Otherwise, I don't know what I'll do. *CK. Wang Lu's reaction was fast enough, but when he chased after her, he could only touch the slight fluctuation left by the healing of the space. This Xia Xiaohe was too slippery. As the princess of the immortal world, her strength in frontal combat was not necessarily strong, but she was cunning and had a variety of means, which was impossible to guard against. In order to deal with this variable, Wang Lu deployed a lot of power to set up an inescapable net. However, she still seized the opportunity to run away. However, this result was not too surprising. If Xia Xiaohe was really easy to be captured, that would be unexpected. As for where Xia Xiaohe would escape to after the feint, Wang Lu could roughly guess. It was very simple. At present, in 9 regions, which was the most vulnerable and most afraid of being hit by external forces, she was most likely to appear there. After pacing 2 steps in place, Wang Lu closed his eyes, raised his right hand, and stretched out an antenna from the tip of his middle finger. It was the high-power communication device of the giant divine weapon. Then he connected it to a huge immortal array that connected the 9 regions. Wangwu, can you hear me? What the hell, are you sick? You suddenly talk in my head. I'm so scared that my life is shortened. Don't talk nonsense, Xia Xiaohe is probably going to your side. Be careful. Don't be careless. I always feel that things are not that simple. I don't want to talk about Xia Xiaohe, but Paksu hasn't shown up yet. I don't believe that he is idle now. If Xia Xiaohe's goal is you, Paksu is likely to make a move together with her. Let them come. At this time, Wang Wu's confidence seemed to have swelled to the point of being out of control. It doesn't matter if they all come together. I am now the world. *CK. After the last word, Wang Wu's voice stopped abruptly, and there was silence in the channel. Wang Lu was silent for a while, took a deep breath, and then waved the antenna on his right hand to connect to the great array of 9 regions map in another way. He looked down at the great array from a detached perspective and soon found a collapsed link. The shadow core of 9 regions map, the node on the stellar peak of Spirit Sword Mountain in Blue River region, was suddenly broken. In the astral wind layer of the 9th sky, Xian Mo carried Bai Zhe and fled quickly, striving for a chance of survival in a desperate situation. However, Bai Zhe refused to cooperate at all and struggled in her hands. Xian Mo, put me down. Xian Mo. Do you hear me? Put me down. Xian Mo was extremely annoyed. Shut up, aren't you afraid that the astral wind will blow into your stomach and crush your internal organs? Really, even a silence immortal talisman can't shut your mouth. Bai Zhe was silent for a moment and then said, I'm already a dead man, you don't need to care so much. Shut up. I can see if you're dead or not. While speaking, a whistling astral wind came head-on from the front. Xian Mo's heart tightened. The astral wind in the 9th sky was the most powerful. The power of the high gale was close to the heavenly tribulation. Although she was not afraid of being hurt, she was afraid that her speed would be slowed down and the pursuers behind her would catch up. Therefore, Xian Mo squeezed herself fiercely, and every pore of her body spurted out pure immortal spirit, which then condensed into a great immortal technique. Yin and Yang divide. Under the tearing of the immortal technique, the invincible astral wind was divided into Yin and Yang, which immediately lost its sharpness. Xian Mo went up against the wind and instantly passed through the astral wind area. It was just that, after this great immortal technique, she felt a burst of fatigue. Her speed involuntarily slowed down. And just when she suddenly realized it, the voice of her former companion came from behind her. Sister Xian Mo, please stop. This was Luo Shui, a great talented woman in Dixian. Usually she was a bit weird and arrogant, but at critical times she always insisted on her unique gentleness. Xian Mo, it's not too late to turn back now. If there's any problem, we'll help you explain it together. Don't let things get out of hand. The voice was broad, and this was the foodie food immortal. Bai Zhe abandoned himself and cast a big mistake that can't be redeemed even if he dies 100 times. You don't have to sacrifice yourself for such a scum. The tone was extremely harsh, but the meaning behind the words was still for her benefit. This was the old man who had been a teacher and friend for many years, Qin Guangmo. However, hearing the voices of these companions, Xian Mo felt a burst of sadness in her heart. Could it be that none of you are willing to trust Bai Zhe? Must you force him into a dead end? Compared to your own companions, are you even more willing to trust those younger cultivators? Well, who you want to believe, who you want to help, it's your freedom. We're already very tired, just let us go. In fact, Xian Mo knew in her heart that her companions who were following behind were indeed secretly letting them go. Otherwise, with their speed, they would have caught up with her long ago. After all, she was not good at speed. However, they let him go because of her, but for Bai Zhe they really intended to kill him. During this time, they unhurriedly hung behind, waiting for Xian Mo to let go of Bai Zhe. After that, they would bring Bai Zhe back to the Behead Immortal platform, and Xian Mo could turn a blind eye, letting her fly freely in the sky. But how could Xian Mo let go of Bai Zhe? So there was no hope of breaking this deadlock. Until a cold voice came in. What are you waiting for? Hurry up and take down those 2 people for me. Hearing this voice, Luo Shui, Food Immortal, and the others showed a look of displeasure and even disgust. This person was called Supreme Ling Dao. He came from Kunlun Immortal. Because of his good cultivation base and good at currying favor, after many years of hard work, he successfully entered the Heavenly Sage Hall and had a respected status. At this time, because the high-level power of the Wanxian League was seriously transferred, he was temporarily assigned to supervise and manage a group of Dixian camp. This task was not easy to do. To connect the Wanxian League and the Dixian camp, it required quite a clever skill. To be able to hold a high position in the Heavenly Sage Hall, Supreme Ling Dao's mind and skill were actually quite good. However, he was blinded by hatred. During the grand competition, his illegitimate son died in the hands of Dixian. This was not discovered when the personnel of the Heavenly Sage Hall were appointed. At this time, Supreme Ling Dao was in power, and a sense of revenge spontaneously arose. The evidence of the betrayal of Bai Zhe and Shen Mo is conclusive. If you dare to cover them up, you will be guilty of the same crime as the two of them. When Master Wang Lu comes back, none of you will have a good end. Hearing the name of Wang Lu, several Dixian people were somewhat helpless and afraid, so they had to speed up their actions. Once Luo Shui and the others got serious, Shen Mo no longer had a chance. It wasn't long before she was stopped. Then she almost collapsed on the spot. Why won't you let us go? Supreme Ling Dao sneered and said, Why? You, a shameless and lowly woman, actually have the face to ask such a question? You too surrendered to the fallen immortals, abandoned yourselves and have long been the public enemies of the continent. Who would let you go? Luo Shui frowned and said, Supreme Ling Dao, I think there's a secret about the two of them betraying the enemy. Secret? What kind of secret can make up for this great crime of betrayal? Supreme Ling Dao was furious. You Dixian people simply don't know what's good for you. The two of them are traitors. There's no need to ask for the reason, just kill them directly. But the food immortal couldn't stand it anymore and stood up to speak. Shut up. Supreme Ling Dao's eyes were red. I don't want to listen to your nonsense. You, go and abolish the cultivation of those two people, and then I'll take them to the Behead Immortal platform and let the world see the fate of traitors. The food immortal, who was named by Supreme Ling Dao, was silent for a long time, and then shook his head and said, I can't do it. Can't do it? Fine, then let's change it to someone who can do it. Luo Shui, you do it. Abolish the cultivation of these two people, and then cut off their limbs, cripple their bodies. Luo Shui looked up angrily and said, It's enough to catch them, there's no need to torture them, right? No need? If we don't torture them, how can we warn others? If we treat this kind of traitor well, what about those who are fighting on the front line? What, you don't want to do it? Fine, Qing Guangmu, you do it, abolish their cultivation, break their limbs and then take off their clothes. When we go back, let the world see their shameful skin and flesh. That's enough. Qin Guangmu flew into a rage. You're not carrying out official duties at all, you're purely abusing your position to avenge a private grudge. Yes, I'm abusing my position to avenge a private grudge, so what? I let you do it, are you going to do it or not? Let me remind you one last time, every detail of what happened now, I will report it to His Excellency Wang Lu when I go back. Luo Shui coldly said, Wang Lu will not support you to do this. Then let's wait and see. Supreme Ling Dao sneered. Yes, in theory Wang Lu would not support him to use such a drastic means, because it would undoubtedly intensify the contradiction between the two sides. However, that was only in theory. As the #1 person in 9 regions, Wang Lu was busy every day, so how could he have the time to carefully examine every detail? As long as his report was beautifully written and watertight, perhaps Wang Lu would not know the details of the matter at all. At that time, wouldn't it be clear at a glance which side he would make a judgment in favor of? Of course, this was tantamount to challenging the authority of Wang Lu, which was tantamount to deceiving the monarch. However, thinking of his beloved son who died tragically in the arena, Supreme Ling Dao could not care so much. It seems that none of you are willing to do it? Fine, then I'll do it myself. Don't think that I can't do anything to you just because you two have a higher realm than me and a protective immortal spirit. Supreme Ling Dao sneered and took out 2 instruments of torture. One was an iron pillar with thorns, and the other was an iron ball like a sea urchin. Seeing the 2 instruments of torture, the countenance of Luo Shui and the others changed greatly. It was the work of the Red Sea Underwater Workshop, which could ignore the damage caused by Dixin's protective immortal spirit. At this time, both Bai Zhe and Shen Mo were restrained and could not resist. If the instrument of torture fell on their bodies, it would be worse than death. However, it was one thing to refrain from making a move against his companions, but another thing to attack Ling Dao. Although what he did at this time was bad, he was, after all, the representative of the Wanxian League. However, just as Supreme Ling Dao approached Bai Zhe and Shen Mo, grinning and ready to activate the instrument of torture. Ah, this trash is really an eyesore. A red light flashed and Supreme Ling Dao was broken in the middle, divided into 2 parts. Then the red light spread and swallowed the two parts of the corpse in an instant. The next moment, the red light turned into a human figure, and Xia Xiaohe walked out of the red light. Looks like I came at the right time? Her smile was still sincere and full of concern. This chapter has a lot of words, so I wrote it a bit late. Sorry. By the way, I recommend a book that is about to be finished, My Beautiful Little Fox Fairy. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.